impossible has happened. A shot on Elo. Good! The Bulls win!
You know what time it is.
The most amazing, sensational, dramatic. Oh, blocked by James! LeBron James with a rejection. Holy cow! Oh my God! I don't believe it! It just continues! My, oh my! You believe in miracles?
Do you know what time it is?
I wake up in the morning, I piss excellence.
Welcome back into another episode of the Sports Hour. This is Mitch-Mo.
And this is Dallen. Guys, welcome on in. It is so good to be here. It is Wednesday, my dudes.
Yeah.
It is November the 1st. Welcome on in to another episode of the Sports Hour, episode 182, live on a Wednesday, not on a Tuesday, because Tuesday was Halloween. Gotta enjoy the holiday, but we're back here on a Wednesday night, live on YouTube at youtube.com/the Sports Hour Guy, live on X, formerly Twitter, at X. You can find us at Sports Hour Guys or on your podcast feed, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Hello, it's good to be here. Mitch, first off, how was your Halloween last night? Did you have a good time? Did you hand out a bunch of candy, or were you left with a giant bowl of candy and no children like I feel like everybody else was this year?
We had some trick-or-treaters. We had some
Okay.
trick-or-treaters, probably in the ballpark of 30.
Nice.
But yeah, still left with way too much candy, which I guess is kind of like kind of the upside of this all, right? You're left with a ton of good stuff, but you wish that you could hand it out to the kiddos, that you had 200 kids show up and you're just like handing out candy all night. That's the fun part of it. But no, we had a good relaxing evening in. We watched the Muppets Haunted Mansion and handed out.
There you go.
So it was
Hell
good.
yeah.
It was a good night. It was a good night.
Hell yeah. We had one little girl come. And listen, we've been in this place for 2 years, so 2 Halloweens now, and I've seen 0 children come through in 2 years at Halloween. My wife says while I was not here last year that she had like a group of kids come once, and that was it. We had one little girl. She loved the cat. I gave her like 3 pieces of candy. That was all we did last night. So, yeah, I don't know what it is about our neighborhood. People don't like it, but what can you do?
Hey, nothing you can do.
Now I got a bowl full of Reese's and Milky Way that I have to eat. Oh no.
Oh,
what a problem.
Oh no.
What a problem.
First world problems.
We hope you guys had a good Halloween, and we appreciate you tuning in tonight for what is going to be a jam-packed episode. Mitch, we've got NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, NHL. I mean, you name it. We're talking about it tonight. It's a jam-packed episode. I cannot wait.
There's so much to get into, and we're gonna start things off a little bit differently, and we're gonna start things off in the NFL, Dallen. We're gonna start things off with our week 8 recap. Excuse me, I always confuse what weeks we're on, especially between college football. But we're a week 8 recap right now for the NFL. Going through it the way we always do, which is usually our superlatives down. Let's start off with our most impressive teams of the week, and if you don't mind, I'm going to kick this one off because
go ahead.
Thoroughly impressed with a team that I think had a lot of question marks. If they were a complete team, we just saw some really big sputtering out of this team that seemed so promising through the first 3 weeks. And then over the last maybe 3 or 4, we've seen some sputtering. We've seen some inconsistencies with this team. Well, they're back. And that's Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys getting it done 43-20 over the LA Rams this past week. Dak Prescott having himself a day, 25 for 31, 304 and 4. Big things from the Dallas Cowboys. And it just feels like that this team is back on track to where we thought they were probably through the first 3 weeks of the season. I think they split their last 4. They went 2-2, and then now this seems like this team is really back on track and headed back in the right direction. And an impressive win against an LA Rams team, which, the Rams, maybe not the toughest opponent they're going to see all year, but the Rams, they've proven to be a team that when they show up, and they're tough to beat when the right team shows up. And so I wouldn't classify this as Dallas's most impressive win, but darn it, they looked pretty darn good on Sunday.
Oh, yeah. Anytime you put up 43 points on any team in the NFL, you've done a pretty good job. And I mean, this Dallas team is one of the best rosters in the NFL. It's something we talked about before the season, and that defense, I thought showed out really well. Under 300 yards allowed for the Rams. They're 4 of 13 on third down. That's an explosive Rams offense, especially through the air. And they were pretty limited in this game. And then obviously, like you pointed out on offense, especially in the past game, I mean, that connection between Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb in this game, huge. 12 receptions, 158 yards, and 2 touchdowns for CeeDee Lamb in this one. So, I mean, Dallas seemingly, and again, they've been a little up and down. They got blown out by the Niners. Not a good look. They lost a very questionable game to Arizona that I think we all kind of point at as like, okay, that was not good. Other than that, they haven't lost, and most of their wins have been in pretty, healthy fashion, pretty much blowouts against bottom tier teams. But good to see them win like this against what seemed as not a bottom tier team, but at least a mid tier team. And the test will come for them. They've got the Eagles this week. We'll see, last time they played a really good team in the Niners, they looked much inferior, right? So we'll see how they perform this week, but this is more of the Dallas team that we would expect, I guess, as one of the top teams in the NFC.
Yeah, it feels like the real test comes this week, and this was like the pre-test, the pre-exam, the one you take before the big midterm. This is what this felt like, and passed with flying colors.
Oh, yeah.
Dallen, you got an impressive team, and I'll tell you what, you should be excited to be talking about this one because, hey, your boys are off the schneid.
Yes. Is it impressive to win a football game 15-13? No, it's probably not. Okay, I understand. But damn it, we hadn't won a game all year. And Bryce Young gets a chance to face off against CJ Stroud. Number 1 pick versus number 2 pick. And listen, there have been Panthers fans since the pick was made, and increasingly so throughout the beginning of this season, that have been vocal in their distaste for Bryce Young and their preference for CJ Stroud. Why didn't we draft Stroud? Bryce Young's too small. He can't fit over the podium. And then this season, as CJ Stroud has clearly looked like the most competent rookie quarterback of those top 3 guys, the noise grew even more. Oh, look at this. We messed up. How do we draft Young over Stroud? I'm so glad that Bryce Young gets his first NFL career win in this head-to-head matchup. And it's not that Stroud played bad, and it's not even that Bryce Young played incredibly well. He played very good in this game. He did enough in this game. But it's the fact that he got this win over that number 2 pick, reassures the fan base, I got this, guys. Just calm down. All right, it's a long season, and we'll get there. And I'm just glad this team was able to figure it out and get a dub. Yes, it was against the Texans. Yes, it was a 15-13 game. It's not pretty. It doesn't have to be pretty if it's a W. So keep pounding. Shout out to Carolina. The Panthers are my most impressive team this week.
I mean, huge win for the Panthers, obviously, to get off the schneid, get that first win in the column. But, more so what you just elaborated on was a huge win for Bryce Young. And of course, Bryce Young is an Alabama guy. I got to stick with my Alabama guy. But arguably, throughout the course of the season, CJ Stroud has had more at his disposal than Bryce Young has as far as weapons to throw the ball to. The weapons in Houston have been better than the weapons in Carolina. Now, Carolina, between the two teams, might have the better weapon in Adam Thielen. But overall, collectively, CJ Stroud has had more at his disposal. So for Bryce Young to finally turn the corner and say, hey, let me just prove to you once and for all, I was the right pick here. Huge dub for Bryce Young fans, Alabama fans all over the country saying, yeah, we do have a number 1 overall draft pick. That's a quarterback, not a defensive player. Yeah, our quarterback. Yeah, that's the guy. Big win for Bryce Young. Big win for the Panthers. Very impressive, even though it was only a 15-13 win.
Oh yeah, Mitch, your disappointing team for the week. Which team disappointed you the most in week 8?
And look, I mean, really, quite honestly, this team should have been a disappointing team the last 3 weeks, but it's the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, this is their third straight loss after starting 5-0. Their first 5 games of the season, Dallen, averaging over 33 points. Their last 3, they've scored 17 across the board.
Yep.
The offense has gone away almost completely for them. Now, I know they're not necessarily 100% healthy. They've had some question marks about Christian McCaffrey's health. They've had some question marks about Deebo Samuel's health and Brock Purdy's health. But I think that we're starting to see the flaw in San Francisco, and we're starting to see when Brock Purdy doesn't have all of his weapons at his disposal, he starts to kind of decompose. His game starts to decompose a little bit, and he kind of starts to show what his real true colors are. I'm not saying that Brock Purdy's a bad quarterback by any means. I think he's a good quarterback. I know there were conversations amongst other people in the sports world about, is he elite? No, he's not elite. He's not elite. He's a good to great quarterback. Great at the very at his ceiling right now. But we're starting to see that if he's not given all of the weapons that he could possibly have at his disposal, he doesn't elevate his game to carry a team like a great or elite quarterback should, which shows that, look, there's a lot of promise to still be had about Purdy. There's still a lot of growth to be there, but disappointing that we haven't seen those steps taken, especially in this last week against the Bengals. This was really going to be a good test for him. Can he elevate his game to keep this a much closer game against Cincinnati? And it really wasn't. It wound up being a 2-score game when it was all said and done. And just a disappointing performance from San Francisco, really over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, and I think what's most alarming for me when we talk about Purdy's play, because I do think that's what it comes down to. This defense is obviously extremely very talented. They will always keep this team in games. And even without Deebo Samuel, and even with the banged up Christian McCaffrey, you still have George Kittle, you still have Brandon Ayuk, like you still have weapons. There's still enough there to work with, and a decent offensive line. The offensive line, though, is not elite as a unit. No. And so when that breaks down and he doesn't have time, he's been really, he's kind of regressed to more of that average to above average range. And you mentioned, the difference between those 5 games and then this last 3. Well, he hadn't thrown an interception through those first 5 games, and he has 5 interceptions in the last 3 games. And you're starting to see that decision-making not look quite as good when he doesn't have as much time and those weapons aren't wide open and, things aren't working perfectly. Doesn't mean that San Francisco's not a contender or that he can't figure it out. Like you said, there's still room to grow for this kid, but it does show that we should probably pump the brakes on Brock Purdy elite. I understand his first 10 or 12 games as a starter were absolutely incredible, but it was always going to come back to reality at some point, and we'll see how he grows through this. Does he just continue to plummet, or does he rise through this challenge, through this, tough stretch and become better from it? And that's what we'll look to see over the next couple of weeks.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of bad quarterback play, Dallen, you have one to kind of mention yourself here.
Yes, my most disappointing team this week is the Kansas City Chiefs. And pretty interesting that probably the two of the Super Bowl favorites, maybe the 2 most Super Bowl favorites, the Niners and the Chiefs, were the most disappointing teams this week. Chiefs lose to the Broncos 24-9. Patrick Mahomes with a really rough game. I mean, they couldn't run the ball at all. Mahomes throws 2 interceptions. He was ill, I think, before the game. There was some sort of health thing.
He was playing with the flu.
Is playing with the flu, and it was no Jordan flu game this time for Patrick Mahomes. Pretty rough performance. And listen, Denver took advantage. And what Denver did is they played a really good game. They played an extremely efficient game. They took advantage when they had turnover opportunities, and they won this game. But the Chiefs certainly handed this game over. No excuse to lose this one. Now, I don't think, in the way that we were talking about the Niners, this isn't a trend for me. This isn't something I worry about for the Chiefs moving forward. I think this is an imperfect team. This is not as strong of a roster as it was a couple years ago, especially in the pass catchers. We've seen that this year with the Chiefs. When that Kelsey-Mahomes connection isn't working, it's like the whole passing offense falls apart because there's not a Tyreek Hill that you can lean on. They still need to find that reliable target to complement, but this isn't a perfect team. So they're going to have duds this was a dud. I expect Kansas City to bounce back, but nonetheless, still a disappointing performance.
Yeah, Kansas City seems to have like one of these games a year where they just like absolutely should not lose it, and they do. Now, granted, Patrick Mahomes, had the flu, and that's definitely a good reason, I guess, to have a poor performance. But like we look last year, I think the Chiefs lost a game to the Colts that they should not have lost.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems, and I'm forgetting who their opponent was even the year before that, but there was like every year the Chiefs have that one game like, this is the game. This is the game that they should not lose. And they blew one to the Broncos. And credit to the Broncos. What a huge help this is having Javonte Williams back in that offense. A guy that you can ground and pound with, limit the mistakes Russell Wilson is going to make, because he's made a ton of them over the last year and a half. And if you can limit those mistakes, get the ball in Javonte Williams' hands. He ran the ball 27 for 85. Now, that's only 3 yards of carry, but at least it's going to chew up some clock and get yourself in a much bit more manageable position for Russell Wilson to execute on second and medium, third and short in those passing situations. So I think a good quality win for the Broncos. But yeah, this is not a trend for the Chiefs. I'm 100% on board with you. Not a trend for the Chiefs. This is just that one game a year where you go, yep, there it is. That's the one they shouldn't have lost, and they did.
Yeah, not going to get easier for Kansas City as they travel to Germany to take on Miami this week. So they will need to bounce back in a big way. But yeah, not as much concern, I think, for Kansas City as maybe we feel for San Francisco right now, I'd say.
Absolutely. Dallen, it's overreaction time, and let's get dramatic. Let's get dramatic with the overreactions. Hit me with your overreaction for the week. I want to hear.
Okay. I don't know if this is like a huge overreaction. Maybe it's just an observation. Maybe this isn't quite as good, but I believe that the race for the number 1 overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft has officially begun. This is the week that teams decided it's time to start going for it. And let me just point out a couple things for you, Mitch. First off, Arizona Cardinals, 1 win this season, but they've been impressive, right? They've been competitive. And part of that is Josh Dobbs, the quarterback, right? Kyler Murray was out. He's sort of there, but they've been, we don't know if we're starting him. Dobbs has been good. And then all of a sudden they announce, we're starting Clayton Tune this week. The rookie and the 5th round pick rookie out of Houston, you're starting him this week and not Josh Dobbs. And then the next day they trade him to Minnesota after the Kirk Cousins injury, right? And you're like, okay, so now you're rolling with a 5th round rookie. You're not starting Kyler Murray. You traded away the competent quarterback you have. You're clearly trying to tank. Let's go to Las Vegas, Mitch. The season's falling apart. Things aren't going well. What do? They fire the head coach. They fire the GM. They bench Jimmy G. They're throwing in a rookie quarterback, Aiden O'Connell. And it's like, all right, Vegas, I see what you're doing. You're trying to get up this draft board. Washington, competitive. This offense is competitive. Sam Howell, they put up points, but still a rough team. What did they do at the trade deadline? Traded away Montez Sweat, traded away Chase Young. I think that's a pretty indication to me that, hey, we are, maybe we're okay with losing. Tennessee's gone to Will Levis. Now that worked out pretty well for them, but you're seeing teams see where they're at in the standings and say, well, maybe we'll make things a little easier for us to lose moving forward. Maybe we'll be less incentivized to try to compete in this thing. I feel like this week we saw a number of moves across the NFL that indicated to me the race for the number 1 pick has begun. I don't think it's just number 1 though, but because of Caleb Williams and Drake May, teams just want to get up there. If we can get a shot at one of those 2 guys, we're going to be very happy. Let's just get up there and get a shot. So
I don't think that's an overreaction at all. I think that you're spot on. Teams like you'd mentioned, Washington, fire sale on defense. Yeah, we're okay. We're gonna fall down or move up the draft board, I guess, if you will, as much as we can to put ourselves in a position to get that quarterback. Maybe Sam Howell's not the guy. Maybe they don't feel confident. Maybe they feel like he's more of a placeholder. The Panthers clearly, they don't have a 1st round pick, so I don't know.
We're not incentivized to lose.
You're not incentivized
we're trying
to lose.
win. We're trying to win.
So, but you look at the Bears, that clearly they're not incentivized to lose either. They traded for Montez Sweat, gave up a 2nd rounder for him. So, there are those teams though, like you mentioned Arizona, you mentioned Washington. there are those teams that are certainly gonna. I think you could throw the New England Patriots in that conversation of teams that should be thinking about, hey, this year's a lost cause. Keep Mac Jones healthy if you think he's the guy, and then fall down or move up the draft board as much as you can, and maybe go get Marvin Harrison Jr. or maybe go get a running back or a good defensive piece. I don't think that's no reaction at all. I think this feels like the right time for that race to start anyway. It's about the midpoint of the year.
Yeah, again, week 9 right now coming up, and at the end of week 9, we will be exactly halfway through the season. So, yeah, I think a lot of NFL teams are just evaluating where they're at and realizing, probably best to shoot for the bottom instead of the top with where we're at in the standings. What about your overreaction?
Look, you mentioned the Raiders firing Josh McDaniels and GM Dave Ziegler.
Mm-hmm.
And so my overreaction this week is no team under any circumstance should hire a Bill Belichick assistant as their head coach. No team under any circumstance. Now, there was a huge question mark. Josh McDaniels got the big 6-year contract. He makes it a year and a half. Now Oakland's on the hook. Las Vegas is on the hook to pay Josh McDaniels the rest of that contract. I think they still have to pay John Gruden. So
he had 10 years on his, so they're still
paying
Gruden.
2 head coaches
Jesus,
millions and millions of dollars to not even coach the team. And I actually have the stat to back this up as why you should not hire a Bill Belichick assistant as your head coach. I'm going to name 8 coaches down that have had head coaching tenures in the NFL that at some point were assistants under Bill Belichick. Bill O'Brien, Romeo Crennel, Josh Daniels, Eric Mangini, Brian Flores, Joe Judge, Matt Patricia, and Brian Daboll. All 8 of them assistants under Bill Belichick. Their combined head coaching record for their careers, 195, 281, and 2. That's winning just around 40% of their games.
Yeah.
Not a winning formula. There is something about Bill Belichick assistants that does not translate into them becoming head coaches. Does not they buy into the Belichick system so much they don't develop their own philosophy and system, and it does not work anywhere else other than where Bill Belichick is at. So that's my overreaction, and I think that just the Josh McDaniels firing just kind of spurred that thought.
Yeah, listen, I don't think it's an overreaction. The numbers bear it out. And unless someone proves it otherwise, and we feel really good about Brian Daboll. He had a great year last year, obviously disappointing this year. Maybe it's still TBD for him, but it's not a great track record there. So I'm saying that's not an overreaction.
Okay. I love it. Glad we're on the same page there. Dallen, MVP of the week. And you take the reins on this one because you're going with a group, a conglomerate of people here.
Yeah. And, it's a little unconventional. I'm going to give it to the backup quarterbacks because we've seen more backup quarterbacks in the last week and then coming into this next week than we have all season. And it feels like this last week especially was the week of seeing more and more backup quarterbacks. I think of Taylor Heineke taking over for Desmond Ridder in Atlanta. They weren't able to win that game against the Titans because Will Levis, the backup quarterback, is playing for Ryan Tannehill, and he looked really good. You've had a number of guys. Gardner Minshew's been starting for a couple weeks in Indy. He's been looking pretty good. I just feel like this was a week where we've seen more and more backups. You saw Trubisky at the end of the Pittsburgh game. Yeah, just feels like backups are playing a big role. It reminds you every year we start the season, we look at all the quarterbacks, we look at all these teams, and we're like so excited for all these star players to do well. And then you get halfway through the season and half of them are injured. 30% of them are out for the season. And you're just like, I forget that this happens every year. But backup quarterbacks, they're important. And they're playing a really big role in the NFL this point in the season.
I think it's a healthy reminder too that there are not just 32 starting capable quarterbacks in the NFL. Like there are more than that, and we see it, like you said, around midseason. We see that every single year of like, wow, at least they give us the illusion that they could start for an NFL team. Like Gardner Minshew's the master at that. Like he shows up, he rolls out 2 or 3 great games in a row, And then he's back on the bench and you're like, damn, I kind of miss Gardner Minshew. I want to see him play again. And you know that he's probably not anyone's first choice to start for them, but you know he's capable of doing it.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's the Nick Foles effect. It's the Nick Foles effect, and we see it every year. So, yeah, I love that MVP. My MVP is going to go to a guy that was a backup quarterback and is probably going to be the starter the rest of the year. At least I think he should be, and that's Mr. Will Levis, Mr. Mayonnaise in his coffee. A fantastic NFL debut, getting the Tennessee Titans the dub over the Falcons, 28-23. He's 19 for 29, 238, and 4 touchdowns, no picks. Exceptionally efficient, showed the ability to throw well in the short game and the mid-range game, but also the deep ball. I mean, I think he had 2 deep ball touchdowns there during the game. It was just fantastic football from Will Levis. He seems to be living up to that big arm hype that he had coming out of college, and a very, very impressive first start for Will Levis.
Oh, yeah, he looked really good. And I do want to give us a little credit here because if you listen to our season preview, our megasode, we discussed Tennessee. And one of the things we talked about was when we would see the turnover of the leaf from Ryan Tannehill to Levis / Malik Willis, whoever it was that Tennessee felt good about moving forward. Obviously, Levis being selected early in the second round, thought he'd get a shot. And we targeted this week as the week, Mitch, because they were coming off their bye. They would have played 6 games up to that point. We would have known the record. And so we had discussed, well, at that point, if you're 2-4, then you just turn it over to Levis and you move forward. Now, Tennessee is doing this, in part because of injury, but still, we kind of called this a bit that this was the right time to throw in Levis. And again, it's, you roll with him for the rest of the season and you figure out what the hell he is for you, because if he's your starting quarterback moving forward, great. If not, you got to pivot, but one way to find that out. So,
yeah, I'm going to give us like 85% of the credit there because it is injury influenced, but we did call the week, the player, and the team. So
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. I also want to toot my own horn because in our NFL superlatives before the season, my first coach fired Josh McDaniels. So
hey, there you go.
I saw that today in the rundown and I was like, oh, look at that.
That
feels good.
Racking up dubs today, Dallen. Racking them up.
Only dubs, Mitch. The big L of the week. Who takes the big L of the week for you?
I'm going to go with Josh Dobbs.
Mm.
And it's more just I feel bad for the guy. I mean, he's a backup quarterback. He gets the job because Kyler Murray is out. He's not playing. And he actually does good work for Arizona. Now, I know Arizona is 1-7. Not a great start for the year for Arizona, but he kept them around in a lot of ball games, and he actually played pretty good, efficient football. He was not bad at all. He gets traded at the trade deadline, and it's like he gets traded to Minnesota, and he's just relegated to backup duties again. And I just feel bad for Josh Dobbs. I feel like he's earned the opportunity to at least get a look in Minnesota, but it sounds like that this first week there, not going to be the case. They're going to roll with whoever they're starting. I can't even remember the guy's name.
Jaren Hall.
And it's
the
Jaren
BYU
Hall.
Quarterback.
That's right. So they're going to roll with Jaren Hall, and Josh Dobbs is going to be riding the pine for his first week there. But just sucks to play good football for a bad team, then get dealt and be relegated to backup duties in your new city. So Josh Dobbs, unfortunately, going to catch the big L here.
Man, yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised by this, Mitch, because I feel like this is a great spot for Dobbs. I do feel like he's probably going to be the starter for the rest of the season. Now, you're trading for him midweek, so it's not realistic to expect him to be able to come in, understand the offense, and run the offense in a good way in this first week. You also have a 5th-round draft pick that you spent on this rookie quarterback, and it also, this game, against Atlanta gives you an opportunity to see what Jaren Hall looks like. And if he looked good, then you could really evaluate, well, do we want to go with Hall, or do we have, do we turn it over to Dobbs? But this should be Dobbs' starting gig moving forward, and a much better situation for him taking over a 4-4 Minnesota team that is in a playoff hunt, could win a wild card game. This would be a chance for him to Geno Smith his career, lead a team that no one expected to a good record and earn himself, maybe it's not in Minnesota, but somewhere, a lengthy contract with a real starting job. So I think this isn't that bad. the bad thing would be if Jared Hall looks really good on Sunday, and then it's like, oh, sorry, Josh, we just can't take it away from this kid, and then you're stuck. That would be unfortunate. I don't, we'll see. I like Jaron a lot. I'm confident in Jaron. I don't know if it's going to be good enough to, turn off starting what Dobbs has done this year, but it is an interesting situation to say the least.
Oh yeah. And Josh Dobbs has the perfect opportunity to Geno Smith his career. He's only 28 or something like that. Like, exactly. He still has plenty of time. So
yeah. And he's played pretty well this year. Pretty impressive. So
right.
My big L, speaking of quarterbacks, Mitch, I'm giving it to the Giants passing offense in this past week in their 13-10 loss to the New York Jets. Mitch, Tyrod Taylor started this game, left with an injury. Tommy DeVito, QB3, elevated off the practice squad before the game, the rookie from Illinois.
Hey, Tommy DeVito, hey!
Yeah, it's a perfect New York Giants quarterback name, honestly. He takes over in relief, and Mitch, Tyrod Taylor and Tommy DeVito combined for 6 completions on 14 attempts, -9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, sacked 4 times, -9 yards on 6 attempts. That's what the Giants offense did. They ran the ball 52 times for 203 yards, a 3.9 average, but the passing game, non-existent. If you're a fantasy manager and you have a Giants pass catcher on your team, God bless your soul. That is a rough place to be in. That is horrible. That's a big L. And the Giants aren't doing anything about it. They're sticking with Tommy DeVito if Tyrod doesn't go this week. That's a bad situation in New York. Rough. I'm going to give big L, Giants passing offense.
Yeah, I just tried to look up of when the last time an NFL team threw for negative yards in a game. And the last NFL team to throw that low a total in passing yardage was the 2000 Browns, who threw for -9 yards in a 48-0 loss to the Jaguars.
Wow.
So there you go.
Yikes. You never want to be associated with any version of the Cleveland Browns. That's just a general principle.
Especially that era. Like that's even worse. Oh, man.
Facts.
Down good week 9 or week 8 recap of the NFL. Let's get into the campus tour. And this is where the week 9 recap will happen down. And we'll kick this off in the Pac-12. Oregon dominating Utah in a very, very convincing statement win. And Arizona taking down number 11 Oregon State in the upset. Dallen, let's talk about probably the more important of these 2 games. And I think that's probably Oregon and Utah. This was convincing, and against the Utah team that you and I have both had very high praises to say about them, especially on the defensive side of the ball. We thought that they've held themselves together really well with the absence of Cam Rising the entire year. But Oregon just offensively dominated this Utah team, who had been praised for their defense the entire year. Bo Nix was fantastic. Bucky Irving was fantastic as well. And the Ducks offense right now seems to be a unit that just cannot be stopped regardless of what defense is thrown in their way.
Yeah, this offense is really impressive. It does feel like the magic sort of ran out on Utah this week. They've been rolling with backup quarterbacks all year, and they'd seemingly survived, right? Other than the loss to Oregon State on the road in Corvallis, which, hey, that's not an easy game anyways. They had survived and gotten wins, and even impressive wins with their backup quarterback situation, with their offense sort of just getting by week, but absolutely fell apart against Oregon at home in this big 35-6 loss. And Bryson Barnes, the starter for Utah right now, didn't look good in this game. They couldn't get the run game going, which they're so reliant on the run game, and they're so one-dimensional in that sense that if you can just kind of shut that down, there's really not much else to worry about. And that was the case in this game. And this Oregon team is really impressive, Mitch. It's really impressive. And they'll have, a couple more challenges before the end of this season. But if they survive those, I mean, we're looking at a rematch of that Huskies-Ducks game in the Pac-12 championship game, and either of those teams would be worthy of a college football playoff berth. I think that's what Oregon proved to me in this game. I don't think I was convinced that they were a true playoff contender until this week, even after the Washington game, which was obviously a very competitive game that they arguably could have and should have won. But I'm convinced now that this Oregon team should be one of those playoff contenders. And again, if they run the table, they get to that Pac-12 championship game, they'll have that opportunity.
Yeah, I absolutely. I think if they get to that Pac-12 championship game and win it, they should be a top 4 team in the nation, no question. Down, moving on to the Big 12. Big upset. Number 6, Oklahoma, upset by unranked Kansas, 38-33. One of those games, Dallin, I think we could have seen coming. In hindsight now, knowing what we know about Oklahoma, knowing what we know about Kansas, how they can be spoilers in this top 25, be spoilers in this college football playoff race, knowing how competitive they can be, especially against big-time programs like Oklahoma. I think in hindsight, this was maybe a game that was a little bit overlooked. Kansas played outstanding football and kind of down the stretch, maybe lucked out a little bit. On paper, it looks like Oklahoma absolutely dominated them, but Kansas finds themselves in a winning, but finds themselves an opportunity to win the game. Devin Neal had a great day on the ground. Kind of a weird game though, just a kind of a weird game, and Oklahoma winds up on the losing end of it.
Yeah, we did talk about this game. This was a game in our picks. We had 3 games in our picks of top 10 teams on the road against unranked opponents, right? But challenging unranked opponents. We had Oklahoma at Kansas, Georgia at Florida, and Ohio State at Wisconsin. We talked about this in our picks. One of these teams was going to fall. One of these teams wasn't going to survive one of these matchups. We chose wrong. We both picked Wisconsin to pull off the upset against Ohio State. But we were right that one of these teams wasn't going to make it. We just picked the wrong one. It was Kansas. And we did talk about this. And I remember mentioning that Jalen Daniels not being in this game hurt my, propensity to pick them as the upset. And Jason Bean, credit to him. He proved he's more than capable of the big moment. And in this game, 15-32, did have 2 interceptions, had a rushing touchdown, but did enough in this game to lead his team to a big upset. So credit to Kansas for this. I don't know if this is a huge indictment on Oklahoma. I think it proves that the Big 12 is just competitive and these top teams are susceptible. Texas and Oklahoma will be susceptible. We'll see how the rest of the Big 12 play goes for those teams because right now there's 4 teams at the top of that conference tied for the top spot with just 1 conference loss, including Texas and Oklahoma. So there's not a guarantee that those 2 teams even make the conference championship game. They still have their work cut out for them. So I think this proves a lot about Kansas. Oklahoma, not in that top tier of competitors like the Oregons and the Washingtons. It's certainly in that next tier, but a test for Oklahoma. They didn't pass. We'll see how they bounce back.
Yeah, absolutely. Down, Georgia, number 1 team in the country coming into this week, handles Florida and their matchup this week. One of those teams that you just mentioned that we talked about as a possible team that could fall. Georgia goes in there and handles Florida easily, 43-20. Not much to take away from this one. I feel like of the 3 that we talked about last week, of top 3 teams that could fall, this was the one I felt most confident about the ranked team getting the job done. Florida is just not there or not near where we thought they were going to be before the season started. And Georgia goes in, handles business, gets it done.
Oh yeah, 43-20. Man, Carson Beck has been looking more and more impressive this season. He's looked really good, and he's sort of even growing into his own towards the back half of the season. I'm excited to see how Georgia performs, especially with 3 ranked opponents on their remaining schedule. Things will get tough for the Bulldogs, and we'll see how they face those tests.
Yes, absolutely. And look, to round out the Week 9 recap, we're going to go to the ACC. Georgia Tech, big upset, knocks off number 17 UNC, and Louisville pitching the shutout against Duke. Now, as impressive as the Louisville shutout is, I think that clearly the game to talk about here is the upset of UNC, a team that you and I were both really high on coming into the year. Georgia Tech, a program that has struggled over the last 25, 30 years to have anything sort of productive, gets it done against a UNC team that has looked so good at times, but has really had some stinkers. And this is kind of one of those stinkers that they threw up there against a far inferior Georgia Tech program.
Yeah, one that certainly North Carolina is going to want to have back, but credit to this Georgia Tech team, 4-4 this season. And Haynes King, the Texas A&M transfer, he's come in and led this team pretty well this year. I think he's performed at a pretty high level, and in this game was instrumental in this big time upset. They also beat a ranked number 17 Miami team on the road this year as well. So, Georgia Tech has been able to pick off a couple big upsets this year, and I think that goes to credit them a lot. I do think that I wasn't maybe as convinced on UNC as being the full solid team that they are. Certainly, we know what Drake May is, and we are big fans of Drake May as a quarterback, but they lost a lot of talent this season around him, and I did sort of wonder what that would look like for them. Certainly this loss not going to help them in the ACC title race. Florida State obviously leading that by a large margin, but going to need to bounce back for UNC after this one.
Yeah, gonna definitely need a bounce back from UNC, that's for sure. And speaking of Georgia Tech knocking off ranked teams, that leads us into our college football trivia question of the week, presented by absolutely nobody. So if you're a listener and would like to sponsor this segment, please get at us on the socials. We would love to plug your business, your small, business, anything. We would love you to be a sponsor of this segment. I'm selfishly looking for one. So please get at us on the socials. But Dallen, are you ready?
I am.
Something about the number 17 and Georgia Tech, because you mentioned that they just knocked off number 17 North Carolina. Earlier this year, they knocked off number 17 Miami. Before this year, the last time they beat a ranked team was November 11th, 2017, when they knocked off number 17 Virginia Tech. In that game, they won 28-22. But the question is not about Georgia Tech. It's about Virginia Tech, because Virginia Tech's defense was led by these two brothers, both of which were first-round picks in 2018.
Ooh. That's a good question. I love all these segues to get a question about Virginia Tech. I love that. It's so good. I'm going to say, is this the Edmonds brothers?
That is correct, Dallen.
Let's go.
Terrell and Tremaine Edwards, the only set of brothers to ever be both selected in the first round of the NFL draft.
Wow.
So, and they're twins. How about that? Mama raised some good ones there.
Yeah,
how about that?
She did. That she did.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, great pull there. Yeah, the Edmonds brothers, the answer to the college football trivia question of the week.
Let's go. All righty, Mitch. That'll do it for the recap. Let's jump into, normally in this spot we talk AP poll reaction, but this week, yesterday on October 31st, we had the first edition of the college football playoff rankings from the College Football Playoff Committee, the official rankings that will set up the college football playoff. And so we sort of transition at this point in the season to focusing on the college football playoff rankings, keeping those in mind as they are what determines bowl games, New Year's Six, and the college football playoff, obviously. So let's react to these, and we'll focus on the top here, especially the top 8 to 10. The biggest surprise is at number 1. It's not Georgia, as the AP poll has indicated all year. It's Ohio State at 1, Georgia at number 2, Michigan at number 3, Florida State at number 4, and then UW, University of Washington, and Oregon at 5 and 6, respectively, just on the outside. Let's talk about those 6 right now, Mitch. Give me your initial thoughts to this ranking. Did you agree with it? Do you think the right 4 teams are in there? Or what was your takeaways from the initial rankings?
I think the right 4 are in there. I think you can make an argument of Washington getting in there. I don't know who you'd take out, though, like at this point. So, but I think that they got the right 4 in there. And you know what? I'm one of those guys. I have no problem with Ohio State being number one. No problems whatsoever. And it's because Georgia hasn't played anybody.
Yep.
Georgia's schedule has been so weak. Of course they're 8-0. They're the back-to-back defending national champions, and they had the weakest schedule out of any one of the top 25 right now. No, duh, they're not going to get number one. Ohio State has beat Penn State and Notre Dame, two very formidable programs. They play in probably, in my opinion, right now, as of this moment, the toughest conference in college football. And they're doing it. They're excelling. I mean, this is a top 5 defense in the nation. That Kyle McCord has been great. I have no problem with Ohio State being number one. I know a lot of people had problems with it. People go into recency bias so much of, well, Georgia's back-to-back national champions. How aren't they number one? Well, it's because they haven't played anyone. They haven't had super impressive wins like Ohio State has. And so the right 4 are in, and I really have no problem with Ohio State being at number one.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember for those college football fans out there that these initial rankings, they don't matter.
No,
frankly,
they
really don't, because you're going off of the information we have at this moment. And all of these teams are going to play 4 more regular season games and or a conference championship game before we actually have to decide who's in and who's out. So for Georgia, they're number 2 right now. If you're a Georgia fan, if you think they should be number 1 and you're like, why the hell aren't we number 1? It's fine. They're going to play 3 ranked opponents over the next 3 weeks. They got Missouri, they got Ole Miss, they got Tennessee. They win all 3 of those games. If they do it in convincing fashion, guess what? They'll probably be number 1 because they'll proven they deserve it. So it's going to play out the way it needs to. And I agree with you. I think it shocked me. I was surprised to see Ohio State at number 1. I didn't think they would do that, the committee, but I do think it's a right call. I have no arguments with it as well, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess I should really reiterate, too, with as wide open as we've talked about this college football season being, like any one of those top 8 teams could be a number 1 ranked team by the end of the year. Like, I think more so than any other former year of the college football playoff, just get in the top 4. It doesn't really matter where you are in the top 4 as long as you're in the show. So, like, if Georgia's ranked number 4, that's fine. They might as well be number 1 at the same time. It's like it doesn't really matter where you get in at this point.
Yeah.
Especially with as wide open as it is this year.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. And listen, the top 5 teams, again, Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, Washington, in that order, they're all 8-0. All undefeated. And then you're followed by all the 1-loss teams, which file in 6 through 13, and they'll have the next best shot. And I think that's fair there. Just to mention the rounding out at least the top 10. Again, Oregon at 6. You have Texas 7-1 at 7, Alabama at 8, Oklahoma at 9, and then Ole Miss at 10. Not Penn State. They jump over the Nittany Lions, which I do agree with. Because Penn State, not impressive this season. Ole Miss played a tougher schedule as well. So there's your top 10. I do think, Oregon, Texas, Alabama, Oklahoma, maybe not Ole Miss. If they got a win over Georgia, certainly that would help their case. But, I think a lot of those teams in the top 10 are still in that mix for the playoff, for that top 4. Again, as you said, it's pretty wide open. Now, Florida State got a pretty easy path to the ACC title game at 12-0. Their schedule's not tough. They're not going to have a great resume, but they're going to be hard to take out of there if they're undefeated. So as long as Florida State survives the ACC and doesn't, slip up, and as long as Michigan and Ohio State both have a case, it's going to be a tough draw for somebody else to get in there. But it is not locked out quite yet, and I am excited to see how this all shakes out over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, it still feels super wide open in the top 10. Just like you mentioned, Georgia has 3 ranked opponents coming up. They drop one of those, especially to Ole Miss. Then we're looking at a completely different scenario. If Alabama wins out, as an Alabama fan, I'm still just not super confident in that team right now. We're not living up to what the standards have been over the last couple of years. It still seems completely wide open. I think of the 1-loss teams, though, Oregon should be the sneakiest one to get into that top 4 when it's all said and done. They're exceptionally solid, and comparing maybe a 1-loss Oregon to a 1-loss Georgia or a 1-loss Michigan, maybe we're talking a different story about.
Oh yeah.
I do have a question though, because it is a little peculiar that the two first teams out are Pac-12 teams, and college football playoff committee. We love to just be super critical of their decision making, and it's kind of a national pastime at this point, Dallin. But with as impressive as Washington and Oregon have been, primarily Washington, I think, is the team we want to talk about here. Do you think the college football committee wants to keep Pac-12 teams out just because it's a dying conference?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think if
and it might be a dumb
it's-
question, but it's a question to ask, I guess.
I think if they did, it certainly wouldn't be for the Oregons and Washingtons of the world, because those are future Big Ten teams.
Sure.
Right? Are we even thinking of them as Pac-12 teams anymore? Because next year they're going to be in the Big Ten, and they'll be a part of the big boys club, and they'll be respected just like the Penn States and the Ohio States and Michigans, right? If they got, to that point. And so I think if it was like an Oregon State team that was 8-0, I think there might be some hesitation from the committee to really give them full credit at that stage. But because it's those blue blood level programs, the ones that were the most highly sought after, the ones that are going to the best conferences in the Big Ten, I don't think that there's quite as much. The one actually conference I was surprised that the committee had maybe a stronger opinion on was the Big 12, where they haven't really been ranked at all this year. And they had 5 teams in the college football playoff rankings, the initial college football playoff rankings. Now, Texas and Oklahoma, it's not like they were overinflated, but you got Kansas, you got Oklahoma State, you got Kansas State in there. I found that pretty surprising that the committee seemed to be bigger on the Big 12 than maybe the AP poll voters had been, as they hadn't included nearly as many of those teams in previous weeks.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I just love being critical of the college football playoff committee, I guess.
I mean,
so,
if you think so, yeah, I think that's fair.
I don't think so. I think you bring up a good point though. Like Oregon and Washington are going to be Big Ten teams next year, so maybe they don't have that bias towards them. But maybe the rest of the Pac-12, they do treat kind of almost like a G5 school, where they get a little bit disrespected when it comes to playoff rankings, much like we saw Cincinnati just a couple years ago go through. So just a dumb question I had there that maybe spark a little conversation. But down, let's get into the MVP of the week. And I'm going to kick it off, down, because it's going to be the same guy as last week. I'm going Ollie Gordon out of Oklahoma State again. Another monster game on the ground. This guy just continues to just churn out yards. 25 for 271 and 2. Huge day in the dub over Cincinnati. Ollie Gordon is quickly rising the ranks as probably one of the best, if not the best, running back in the nation right now.
Oh, yeah. Kid's been incredible. I keep telling you that BYU game at the end of the year that they play Oklahoma State, I'm just dreading on what that kid's going to do, that Cougar defense, because he is the best running back in the country this year. He continues to rack up the yards. It is incredible. And I love that you didn't even have to move him. You didn't even have to edit anything on this rundown. You just kept him in there. I think you should pencil him in for next week. He's probably rushing for 180 and 2 tutties. So
yeah. I mean, at what point does a guy like this come into Heisman consideration, though?
That's a good question. If he's keeping up this pace over the last 4 or 5 games of the season, absolutely. I think you're going to start hitting some big numbers, and you're going to have to start talking about him. So we'll see if he can keep up the really high pace he's at. But love the pick. I'm going with a group of 5 quarterback, Mitch, giving it to Chandler Rogers, the quarterback for North Texas, the Mean Green. Big game in the loss to Memphis. They lost 45-42. Chandler Rogers did his part, 39 of 42, 411 yards and 5 passing touchdowns. He's had a really good season for North Texas, 19 touchdowns to just 1 interception, completing 65% of his passes.
Wow.
He's playing at a really high level, the junior out of Texas. So, multiple time transfer, seems like he's really coming into his own for North Texas in a big game. And despite the loss, you throw for 405 tutties, you get a shout out here on the Sports Hour.
Shout out Chandler Rogers getting it done. Great. You hope the kid gets the win, but still a stellar performance nonetheless, even in the loss there. Upset of the week, Dallen. We talked about it already. UNC getting the loss to Georgia Tech. They were 12-point favorites
Yeah.
On the road, I believe they were 12-point favorites.
Yes.
So Georgia Tech getting it done as 12-point dogs at home, getting that win 46-42. We've talked about that one quite a bit. Anything else to add to that one?
Nope. Don't lose like that. Don't lose big time. Bad call.
That's not winning, UNC. That's not how you win.
It's not what you're supposed to do.
No, that's the opposite of what you're supposed to do. Dallen, Heisman watch. A little bit of shuffling in our top 5 here. Let's just go down the list, and quite frankly, we still got the same 5 names there, just in a different order here. We still got Michael Penix at number 1, and rightfully so, still the number 1 in our Heisman watch list. Bo Nix is going to jump up to number 2. Dylan Gabriel is going to slide back to number 3. Caleb Williams sliding back to number 4, and Jaden Daniels is going to hold steady at number 5. Jaden Daniels has just been so impressive this year that it was hard to take him out of this top 5. But Bo Nix making the big leap, jumping 2 spots in our rankings. And I think rightfully so. We talked about his performance this last week against Utah. And he continues to build a pretty impressive resume, and one that might be challenging Michael Penix by the end of the year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you do what he did against that Utah Utes defense. You're going to give some credit here. And, listen, they already matched up this year, Penix and Bo Nix, and we love to see a rematch in the Pac-12 championship game. And maybe a chance to win the Heisman as well on the line. Not only a college football playoff, the final Pac-12 championship, and a Heisman on the line for those guys. I mean, come on. I need it. I need it.
I'm a quasi Oregon fan. I like to see Oregon do well,
right.
But I still have, and I'm a left-handed quarterback hater. But I still have to pull for Michael Penix in this one because Bo Nix is a former Auburn Tiger. So I cannot pull for Bo Nix. For Bo Nix.
That is fair.
Dallen, that's our Heisman watch. And of course, that's a fluid list, so things will change. We might see some new names coming up here in the near future. Maybe next week, might see a new name there. You never know. But let's move on to our games to watch this week. And Dallen, you gapped me even further this week. I had the 1 point last week. I missed on my lock. I locked Wisconsin over Ohio State. I was ballsy about it. Missed out on it. Thankfully, though, you wisely did not lock it, and so you just took the 0. I had to take the -1 here. I wound up with 1 point last week. Dallen, 4 points last week. Well done. So you jump out to a 25-16 lead over the course of the year. I got to get some things right here, man. I got to get some locks right. I got to start and kind of almost hoping that you just get some wrong. Yeah. So maybe I start zigging when you zag.
Ooh.
And try to gain some points here and just be a little bit risky about it, because 9 points is in this format. Hey, that's tough to overcome.
And we're running out of weeks, too. Just 4 weeks left in the regular season. And obviously, we'll pick all of the Power 6 conference championship games. So we'll do the Power 5 plus the most significant group of 5. So we'll do 6 picks in that final week. And we'll do the super pick. And we'll do it big. But again, only 4 weeks of the regular season left. So, yeah, you're right. You can't let the deficit get any bigger at this point. You got to start chipping away. So a big week coming up.
The coveted super lock. I cannot wait for that week. That's going to be a fun one.
Yes.
But Dallen, let's kick it off with, actually, all of these are top 25 matchups.
Yep.
We're going to start this off with number 23, Kansas State. They are headed over to College Station.
Nope.
That's A&M. Headed over to Austin.
There we go.
I kept fucking that up a couple weeks ago. Now I fucked it up again. All right, they're headed over to Austin. Why do I confuse College Station and Austin so much? I don't understand. That's such an easy thing not to confuse. Kansas State, they're headed over to Austin, take on the Longhorns, number 7 ranked Longhorns. Right now, Texas favored, home favorites at -4. This Kansas team is sneaky tough, really stingy. But this Texas team they've won some games pretty handily, and I know they're number 7 in the country, but man, I'm just still confused about Texas. I don't know if I can completely buy in yet. We talked about them being back, then they weren't back, and now They might be back again. I don't know. I don't know about Texas. I'm going to take Texas to win the game. I'm not going to lock it, but it feels weird to take Texas not winning at home against Kansas State, but I don't feel like this might be the pick that I don't feel the most confident about. But I'm going to take the Longhorns in this one.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Malik Murphy going to get the start in this one, seemingly. I haven't heard anything on Quinn Ewers being available. I know he was going to miss at least a couple weeks, so we should see Malik Murphy this week. And, listen, I watched this Texas team just last week play BYU, handled them 35-6. But I'm not going to lie, I was not that impressed by this Texas team. It was 21-3 until pretty late in that game. Texas added a couple late touchdowns on some short fields to make that game look bigger, but BYU competed a lot more with Texas than I expected. And if Texas is going to be a college football playoff contender, they shouldn't be, that competitive with a team like the BYU Cougars. And Kansas State is a really, really good team, and a team that's going to be motivated to knock off Texas before they head to the SEC. So this is not going to be an easy task. I don't think Malik Murphy is the guy yet. Maybe he will be one day. I don't think he has it right now. I'm taking the upset.
Oh,
Give
wow.
me Kansas State in this one. Give me the Wildcats on the road. I won't lock this, but I'm going to take Kansas State to cause even more chaos in the Big 12.
I love it.
Should be a fun one.
Very fun one.
SEC matchup up next, Mitch. We're talking a lot about Georgia, number 2 Georgia. They face one of their biggest tests on the season so far, for sure, when number 12 Missouri comes into town. 7-1. Tigers having a great season, and they'll look to knock off Georgia in this matchup. The Bulldogs favored in this one, minus 15.5. It's the biggest line we have this week, and that's probably fair. Georgia or Missouri obviously having a hell of a season, just one loss on the season, but still, I think a large unknown. And it's not like Missouri has been, tested to the extreme yet this year. So, they beat Kansas State. They beat Kentucky. They lost to LSU. That's the lone loss for Missouri this season. So I don't know quite yet what to make of this Missouri team. I'm going to take Georgia in this game. They're playing really well right now. Again, I like how Carson Beck is playing. He seems like he's really coming into his own, feeling much more confident about him and this team and what it means for their college football playoff hopes. I'm not going to lock it. The fine is 15.5. Don't like that at all. Don't feel confident in that, but I will take Georgia to win this one.
Yeah, we just talked about, I just kind of ranted a little bit about how Georgia hasn't played anyone. And this, I feel like, is their first test. And I think they get this job done. But in their first test, I'm going to take them to win, but they're certainly not going to cover this line. I think this is a one-score game. I think Missouri plays them tight, but Georgia still gets the job done, and they advance to 9-0. Give me the Dogs. Following that game, Dallen, we got a Pac-12 matchup. Number 5, Washington. 8-0, Washington. They're headed down south, and they're going to take on the USC Trojans. 7-2, ranked number 20 in the nation right now. Washington, 3-point road favorites. I don't like this USC team anymore. I don't. I know we were high on them to start the year, and I talked about if they miss the college football playoff, that's a disappointment for this team. It is a disappointing year for USC. It's a disappointing year for Caleb Williams as far as the winning side of things goes. USC drops this game and gets to 3 losses. I'm going to take Washington to advance to 9-0. Give me the Huskies on the road. Yeah. I think a couple weeks ago heading into this game, it was like, wow, that's going to be a hell of a matchup in LA. Washington, finally, another big test after that Oregon game, but obviously USC after the losses to Notre Dame and Utah. And yeah, they beat Cal last week, but not in impressive fashion. It almost felt like a loss because they barely beat Cal and still gave up 49 points to that horrible offense. So Washington might score 60 in this game, Mitch. Washington might just fucking do it. You know what? I'm calling it. Can we put it on the board or something? Do we still do that? I don't know what I don't have the hill and I don't have the hill anymore, but we can put it on there.
Washington's scoring 60 in this game because this USC defense is not up to the task, and I'm locking this one for the Huskies. Give me the Huskies -3 in this game. They're going to win this and win this by more than that for sure. So I like it.
Dallen, don't make me go back.
It's too late. You made your pick, and we're moving on to the second Big 12.
That's such an easy lock. Why did I miss that? That's such an easy lock. God.
Number 9, Oklahoma. It's a matchup of the Oklahoma schools for the final time in Big 12 history. Sooners and Cowboys. Number 9, Oklahoma at number 22, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma, the Sooners favored on the road, -5.5. Man, oh man. This is yet another tricky game in the Big 12. Oklahoma, they just suffered that loss to Kansas. Probably reeling, probably in need of a reset. Can Brett Venables get his team back on track? Can they keep their playoff hopes alive this week? Or will this loss compound into yet another loss against an Oklahoma State team that is on fire recently? 4 weeks ago, they looked like they were dead in the water, might be one of the worst teams in the Big 12. Now they look like they might make the Big 12 championship game with Ollie Gordon at running back. This Oklahoma State team is tough, Mitch. But I'm going to say that the Sooners don't allow themselves to drop back-to-back games. This is going to be a tight one. They're not covering that 5.5 number. This should be a hell of a game. And, oh, man, I want to take the Cowboys so badly in this one. But I'm going Boomer Sooner on this. Give me Oklahoma on the road to get it done in an ugly game, ugly fashion, but enough to walk away with the win.
I really want to take Oklahoma in this one, but I have to start swinging for the fence. I have to. This is a game, Dallen. We're playing the game now, baby. I got to take, and you know what? I can justify Oklahoma State.
Oh, yeah.
I can justify that for sure. Go Pokes. Go Pokes.
Love it.
Give me the Cowboys. I love that. Dallen, the last game we're going to cover, number 14, LSU. They're headed over to Tuscaloosa to take on the number 8 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. My Alabama Crimson Tide. Alabama right now favored at -3. Lock in the Tide. Roll damn Tide. This is a look. For those maybe picking it home along with us, this is going to be one you're going to have to bear with because Alabama, not a good first half team this year. They've been a great second half team though. They've pulled themselves together really well in the second half of a lot of games. I think this might be one of those games where it's tied at halftime and they run away with it by 1 or 2 scores. I like Alabama in the lock here over LSU.
Yeah, I know you liked that Washington -3 line, but Alabama -3 at home for you should feel pretty good.
It does feel good
about that lock.
It does. I just agree with you that Washington's going to go score 60. So
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And listen, I like this game. This is a really interesting game. I was not high on LSU coming into this season. I was pretty vocal about that. And, that first opening game against Florida State, I think proved that. LSU's played a pretty good season since then. They've held on, one loss to a good Ole Miss team on the road. They handed Missouri their lone loss on the season. That was in a road game. Other than that, haven't really been tested by too much really talented teams. And this is the final big test that LSU has this year against Alabama. If they want a shot at the SEC title game, if they want a shot at a New Year's Six Bowl, it comes down to this. Comes down to beating Alabama this week. Can the Tigers do it? Does Jaden Daniels have enough, Mitch? You said we got to play the game. I'll play the game. Go Tigers. Give me LSU in this one.
Ugh. Okay. Yeah, no, fair enough. Fair enough. I feel a little betrayed, but yeah, it's fine. I didn't expect you to take Alabama in anything ever, but it's all right. You're just my best friend. It's all good. But, it's whatever.
It's a good one, but I'd love to get a point on you. That's all I'm saying.
I know. I get it. I get it. Hell, shit. You could get 2 points on me in that one, actually. So
it could be a big swing. It could be a big swing. That's for damn sure. So love to see it again. I'm at 25 points on the season. Mitch at 16 points on the picks. And a couple weeks left of this. the conference championship weekend with the super locks. I mean, it's going to be fun in these games to watch over the next month or so.
Oh, it's going to be a blast. It's going to be a blast. Dallen, that is going to wrap up the campus tour, and that's going to wrap up the first half of the show. Let's hit a quick mid-roll. And when we come back, we're going to get into, man, the whole gamut. We got World Series. We got NHL. We got NBA. We got more NFL. It's going to be a doozy of a second half. You're not going to want to miss it, so stick around, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the second half of the Sports Hour with Mitch-Mo and Dallen. Thanks for sticking around with us through the break. Dallen, all sorts of sports to get through right now. I don't know. All sorts of sports to get through right now. Let's kick it off with a little bit of a World Series update right now. Game 5 of the World Series going on right now. Texas Rangers, Arizona Diamondbacks. Right now, Texas leading the World Series 3-1, and they're leading Game 5 right now, 1-0 in the bottom of the 7th. Two very unassuming teams at the beginning of the year. We did not expect these two teams to be here, and yet here we are. And I'll tell you what, through the first 4 games, this seems like the Rangers series to lose. Like this seems like one that they should just take very easily. And right now in Game 5, up 1-0 in the bottom of the 7th, it sure seems like that this is they might be walking away with a World Series trophy, their first in franchise history.
Yeah, and this Rangers team has invested a lot over the last couple of years, acquired a lot of talent to make this happen, and it's paid off. And it seemingly has paid off. It got them to the World Series. We'll see if they can finish it off tonight in Arizona, and we'll touch back on this game at the end of the podcast if we can get a result, and we'll react to that. But we talked about this last week on the podcast as the NLCS was still being determined. We both picked the Rangers to win it, right? No matter who had come out of the NL, whether it was the Phillies or the D-backs, we both picked Texas because it just felt like they were rolling with all the momentum. And again, 3-1 lead in this series, a lead in Game 5 on the road in the bottom of the 7th. We'll see if the Rangers can pull it off, but it's been an impressive run for them and an impressive run for the Diamondbacks. They deserve their credit too, but could have the World Series wrapped up here pretty shortly. And Mitch is muted. You got this, bud.
I'm sorry. I hit the mute button. That's my bad. That was an accident.
You got to mute when you take a sip. And you know what? We do that for you people. And then sometimes, you just forget to put it back on. We've all been there.
No, I actually did accidentally bump the mute button. That was on me.
Yeah, that was just an accident.
That was a straight accidental bump. That's on me. But it'll be exciting to see if we have a World Series winner tonight. And the Rangers, like you said, invested so much into this team, and have really done a great job of building a winner there. It'd be fun to see someone win their first World Series title of all time. So that'd be great to see the Rangers get it done. Dallen, weekly Kraken update.
Yes, sir.
Better than last week, I guess.
Yeah,
we were 2-1-1 over the last week. We've advanced to 3-5-2.
Yeah.
What do you got on our boys, Dallen?
Things are getting better for the Kraken, Mitch. And what I like about this is we're just competing at a higher level. You look at those early games this season: 4-1 loss, 3-0 loss, 4-1 loss, 4-1 loss. Like, we're not close. We're giving up goals. We're not scoring goals. We're not really being competitive. And that was alarming. We talked about it. It was like, that doesn't look great. But early in the season, let's see how we respond. And in this last week, Mitch, we've responded well. 4 games, 3 of those went to overtime. We go 2-0-1 in those overtime games. We get 2 overtime wins, the 1 overtime loss, which still counts as a point in the NHL. And I like that we're seeing more fight from this team and more competition, frankly. And that's what you want to see. And hopefully this is moving forward, that we, maybe we close these things out in regular time. We don't have to go to overtime. We can just finish it out in regulation. We'll see how it progresses. But I think this is progress for the Kraken, and I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about last week, it's a long season. There's plenty of room to make a ton of improvement here.
Oh yeah,
it's the same length as the NBA season. It's like 82 games, I think.
Yeah.
So plenty of time for the Kraken to continue to collect those playoff points and put themselves in good playoff standings as we move forward throughout the year.
Yeah,
Dallen, you've waited a long time, I think, for this, because you are the NBA guy on this podcast, and I know that I'm excited to get into the NBA season. The NBA season is upon us. Basketball is back. And as someone who is finding a rebirth as an NBA fan, someone who did not pay attention to the league that much up until about 4 or 5 years ago when we started this podcast, I find myself increasingly getting excited about the NBA season coming back and paying attention to the league and being involved in it. And, we haven't done this in a while, but on this week's edition of Mitch-Mo's Top 5 List of the Week, we're going to be doing the top 5 reasons I'm excited about the NBA season.
All righty. Well, I am excited to hear the reasons that you're excited. Let's go.
It's a selfish list. I know it's a selfish list. But as a fan that's getting back in the league, I just have to find certain reasons to get me pumped up. And I'm going to kick it off with right out of the gate. Number 5, no honorable mentions this week. I'm just going to kick it right off into the list. Number 5, expansion talk.
Yeah.
I feel like this comes up every single year, and Adam Silver addresses it seemingly every single year about expansion within the league. They're only at 30 teams, which is a fine number, but 32 is kind of like that money zone. Like, I think MLB has found a lot of success with 32 teams, or excuse me, the NFL has found success with 32 teams. It seems like a very, very good number to be at. And with the NBA sitting at 30 right now, where are those 2 teams going to go? We hear Seattle a lot. We hear Las Vegas. I always thought about St. Louis or Nashville as possible things. What if Canada gets another team? The NBA expansion talk always just kind of gets the juices flowing about what the league could be in the next few years. And it makes it kind of exciting, and it allows the fan to be a little bit more creative in what those teams could look like. So expansion talk always gets me excited for the NBA season.
Oh yeah. And you love just how this game is growing, and I mean, you look at, there's so much talent in this league. There's no question to me that they could add 2 competitive teams to this league, and they would not be lacking for talent across the board. I mean, there's superstars on nearly every single team now, and that is really fun as a fan.
Oh my gosh, so much fun. Love the expansion talk. Number 4 on the list. I feel like I have become a fan of this team again. I was when I was a child. I fell out of love with this team. I feel like I'm back with this team now over the last couple of years. I'm excited about the Sacramento Kings, and I'm excited to see if they take that next step. We saw how competitive they were last year. They were a playoff team. They almost advanced this. They almost advanced the next round in the playoffs. This was a super competitive, but a very young team, a team that was kind of still putting the pieces together. I feel like De'Aaron Fox has been taking the next steps. They bring Sabonis back, who's a great defensive piece and a good undersized post piece. I love the Sacramento Kings team, and I'm curious to see if they take the next step towards being a serious contender in the West. So I'm excited about the Sacramento Kings, man.
Oh, yeah. I want to see how many times they light the beam this year. Let's go.
Light the motherfucking beam, man. Light the beam. So the Sacramento Kings, number 4 on the list. Number 3 on the list. Huge hype surrounding this guy going into the draft. And huge is a fitting name for this guy because he is a huge human being. Victor Wembanyama. I am excited to see, does he live up to the hype? Now, through the first week or so of the season, it sure seems like he does. He's been fantastic. But I would really like to see if he is the next great, import's the wrong word. That's the wrong word. But the next great European player in the league. I feel like Luka was kind of the last one that we had, and now is Victor Wembanyama, one of those guys that's going to be the next great European player in the league. So Webby, I'm excited to see what he brings to the table.
Oh yeah, and 16 points, 7.5 rebounds, 2.3 blocks per game. That's what he's averaging so far. Just 4 games early in his NBA career. But yeah, he's certainly an exciting player to watch. And I loved yesterday his Halloween costume, Slenderman.
Oh, that's perfect. That's fitting.
Because of course he's like a human Slenderman. I'm like, that is incredible. He's got a lot of range. I was telling Caitlin, I'm like, he could be Jack Skellington next year, from Nightmare Before Christmas. He'd be perfect for that. I mean, we'll see some fun stuff from Wemby, but yeah, very excited to see his rookie season.
Oh yeah. Very, very excited to see what he's got in store for those San Antonio Spurs. Number 2 on the list, Alan. I'm really excited to see what Dame's impact on Milwaukee is going to be. Does that push that team? Like, I know that they've been kind of the kings of the East over the last couple of years, but does that push them into super team territory? Is it a team that you expect to win 60 plus? A team that you just perennially expect to be the favorite out of the East? Because I feel like over the last couple of years, they were one of the favorites, but they weren't the favorite every single time. I feel like the Celtics were always in that conversation as well. So, or the Nets. I mean, the Nets were also one of those teams that were put in favorite, the East favorites conversation. I'm excited to see what impact he has on that team and how well him and Giannis are going to gel and be a cohesive unit in that Bucks 5. So, Dame's impact on Milwaukee is going to be number 2 on the list.
Yeah, definitely probably the biggest move of the offseason, the most significant, I would say. And I mean, this is a Bucks team that 3 of the last 5 seasons, they finished as the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference coming out of the regular season, 56 plus wins 3 times. And yet the one season they won the NBA title, they won like 46 games in the regular season. Just goes to show that doesn't really matter. But when playoff time comes, having another clutch player on your roster, a shooter, a perimeter shooter,
Dame time.
Not just putting it in Giannis's hands and hoping he can get to the bucket, right? But putting it in the hands of someone like Damian Lillard and say, go hit a 3 when we need it. And you're not relying on Chris Middleton to do that. That's a huge improvement. And I think regular season impact will be lesser. Postseason impact is going to be huge for Milwaukee. We'll see how it plays out for them this year.
Yeah, going to love to see that impact and what Dame is going to do. But number 1 on the list, down, I think this is an easy number 1, the in-season tournament.
Yeah.
I want to know how this is going to work out. I don't know if I still fully understand how it works, but I'm excited to see how this works out because it's such a unique and innovative idea, something that's completely unique to the NBA, that it's going to be really exciting to see how this all works, and if it's going to be something that is something that they can continue to do for years to come, or if it's maybe going to be a one-off thing. Even if it is a one-off thing and they don't go with it, I'm sure it's going to be fun regardless. So the in-season tournament is going to be something that I think is probably the most exciting thing to see coming this coming NBA season.
Yeah, and I think the NBA has deserved the benefit of the doubt because of the success of the play-in tournament. And there was skepticism and resistance to that, right? This is conventional, whatever it is, but those games have been very well received. And I feel like generally NBA fans have received the play-in tournament very well. It makes teams more competitive down the stretch. It incentivizes less teams to tank. It includes more teams in the playoff picture. It's all positives. And so I think the NBA has deserved this benefit of the doubt with the midseason tournament. And we may have our doubts of what the point is and what the actual incentive or, any of that is. But with the success of the play-in tournament, I think the NBA and Adam Silver deserve a chance to let this, ride out. And as you said, if it's a one-year thing and it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I just love that the NBA is trying things. I love that the NBA is thinking big and thinking, how do we make this a more interesting game throughout the entirety of our schedule? And I don't think they're going to go wrong with that, even if this doesn't turn out to be a great success.
Exactly.
I love that. You got me even more excited for the NBA season hearing all of these things, Mitch. I love that.
Right on. That's my goal. I think we should all get excited about the NBA season because I feel like this is going to be a great one. This is going to be a really great competitive season. So tons to get excited about.
All right. Read through the list one more time for the folks.
All right. So number 5 on the list is going to be expansion talk. Number 4, the Sacramento Kings. Number 3, Victor Wembanyama. Does he live up to the hype? Number 2, Dame's impact on Milwaukee. And number 1, the in-season tournament of the top 5 things I'm most excited about this coming NBA season.
There you go. It's Mitch-Mo's top 5 list of the week. We love when we get a Mitch-Mo's top 5 list of the week, and it's been a minute. So it's very welcome here.
Hopefully more to come. Soon.
Yeah. All righty. Mitch, we're talking NBA. Let's continue to talk NBA with a little NBA season preview. So what we got for you folks is we're going to give you our seeding, our top 8 seeds from the Eastern and Western Conference. We'll dive in a little bit on some of the specific teams, maybe the more interesting teams in some of these conference races. But we'll give you our top 8 teams from the East and the West, as well as our NBA Finals matchup at the end. So you'll want to look forward to that. But Mitch, you want to start in the East or the West? Which conference you want to start with?
Let's start in the East. And I think we should just let's start from the bottom to the top. Let's do 5 through 8. Let's start with 5 through 8.
Okay, bottom 4 teams in the East. Let's read through both of ours, and then we can have a discussion. So I'll go first from 8 to 5. These are my seedings. At the 8 seed in the East, I have the Orlando Magic. At the number 7 seed, I have the Toronto Raptors. The number 6 seed, I have the Atlanta Hawks. And at the number 5 seed, the Philadelphia 76ers.
Okay, so there's some similarities, some difference. At the 8 seed, I have and I put 2 teams there because I don't know who's going to win that play-in tournament. So I'll make the call here right on the spot. I'm going to go with the Orlando Magic at the 8.
Let's go.
I have the Philadelphia 76ers at the 7 seed.
Okay.
I have the Chicago Bulls at the 6 seed.
Yeah.
And I have the New York Knicks at the 5 seed.
Okay. So a couple teams different here. So if I get this right, you had the New York Knicks and the Chicago Bulls in the playoffs, and I had the Atlanta Hawks and the Toronto Raptors in there. Those were the 2 differences we had there, which yes. I will say those 2 teams, the Knicks, Bulls, were 2 teams I contemplated at the end that, in those final spots. Certainly those are teams I think would be in the play-in tournament mix. Let's talk about Orlando, though. It does kind of feel like the Magic are a team that's going to make a leap with all that young talent that they have and really compete for that play-in tournament spot. Maybe they end up as the 9 or 10 coming out of the regular season, but they win those games to earn that 8 spot and get that playoff experience for a young squad. It does kind of feel like Orlando is one of those teams trending in the right direction, and clearly we both expect them to make a bit of a leap and earn a playoff spot.
I really do, and I also feel like this is a huge leap year for Paolo Banchero.
Oh yeah,
A big leap year where he kind of, I'll call it right now, he'll be an all-star.
Okay.
I'll call it right now. I think that Paolo Banchero will be an all-star. And I think this is a huge leap for him and a great opportunity to do so because he has good supporting cast around him. I think he can be the guy as a big man, as a power forward on that team. So I really do like this Orlando Magic team. I think that they have something brewing that, like we said, 8 seed, probably not something, that we expect them to make a deep run, but maybe they get in through that play-in tournament, and we're talking about them in the playoffs.
Yeah, and listen, the Eastern Conference, the top 4 teams, which I'm pretty sure we have the same top 4, very strong. Very, very strong.
Yes.
But that middle group, those bottom 4 seeds, and especially in that play-in range, it's going to be competitive. There's going to be a number of teams that have a shot there. So for a young team like Orlando, there will be an opportunity for them to earn that spot and compete with those teams in that range. I am excited to see what they do. Let's talk a little bit about Philly, though.
Yep.
Obviously, the Sixers, one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference last year, 54 wins. They were the 3 seed. Joel Embiid, the MVP, yet they move on from James Harden just this week. Finally, he's traded to the Los Angeles Clippers in a big-time move. So no James Harden there. He wasn't playing this year anyway, so we'll see how much of an impact it has. But I want to ask you, did that affect where you had them in your rankings? Did you have a ranking for them before the trade, and did you drop them at all because of the Harden move?
I don't know if it dropped them that significantly. I think they probably were about a 5 seed and moved them back to a 7. I mean, it's sure. And I honestly could be wrong. This may have a positive effect on the Sixers because they kind of got a cancer out of the locker room there. James Harden doesn't know where he ever wants to play ever. I mean, he seems like he says he wants to go here. He goes there. Now he doesn't want to be there. So, I think the big question though is, can Joel Embiid be the leader that he needs to be on this ball club? I really think that this is going to be a huge question for him. And I think that also more so than just as much as that is Tyrese Maxey. Are we going to see ceiling Tyrese Maxey? Yeah. It sure seems like through the first week of the year, we've seen that he's played fantastic, but can we see that throughout the course of a season? So I still think they have plenty of that. I didn't even mention Kelly Oubre, Tobias Harris. They have plenty of talent there. But, Joel and Tyrese, those are going to be the 2 guys that are going to have to step up and become true leaders on that ball club throughout the course of the season.
Yeah, well, you know what Joel Embiid is, and Tyrese Maxey has shown us a lot of good things in his young NBA career, but can he prove to be a leading guard on a top NBA team? That's what we don't know. Clearly, Philadelphia feels confident that can happen as they've been willing to move on from Harden. Obviously, the situation isn't great. He's not helping your team, so good to move on, but shows a lot of trust in that young player. We'll see how it shakes out for Philly. Again, Mitch had them as the 7 seed. I had them as the 5. I think I had them as the 5 or maybe the 4 before the trade. Didn't really move me too much, much as you said. I don't think it may actually help them in the long run. Sure. But I do think that either way, they are a tier behind some of the top teams in the Eastern Conference.
And I'm kind of hoping I'm wrong on the Sixers. I kind of hope that it is a help for them, because that this is a fan base. As much as Philly fan bases are so insufferable, they've put up with a lot of shit with the Sixers. Yeah. So hopefully this is something that helps move them forward, put them in the right direction.
Yeah. So. Just root for the Eagles, guys.
Eagles and
not the Phillies because they fell short. Maybe not the Flyers.
Come April, just keep pulling for the Sixers. Wait for the Phillies till about June.
Exactly. Yeah. Mitch, let's talk about the top 4 teams in the Eastern Conference. So as I mentioned earlier, I think we have the same 4 teams. I'm curious to see the order. How about you go first? Your top 4 seeds in the Eastern Conference this coming season.
Yeah, so number 4, I got the Miami Heat. Number 3, I got the Boston Celtics. Number 2, I got the Cleveland Cavaliers. And number 1, I got the Milwaukee Bucks.
I love this. At number 4, I have the Miami Heat. At number 3, I have the Milwaukee Bucks.
Okay.
At number 2, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. And at number 1, I have the Boston Celtics.
All right.
So we're all the same other than we flopped Boston and Milwaukee.
Yep.
So Miami at 4, I feel good about that. Cleveland at 2, this Cleveland team, won 51 games last year. I think surprised a lot of people. I see the Cavs as a regular season darling and a postseason disappointment. So they're going to win 55 plus games this year, and they might get bounced in the first round, but they'll win a lot of regular season games. And so that's where I felt like getting up to that 2 seed was a real possibility for them. I'm sure you're in the same boat. Anything on those two teams before we have a discussion on Milwaukee, Boston, where I think the real conversation is?
No, I think that both those teams are they kind of fit in the same boat for me. Regular season darlings, they look great, and then they could get bounced in the first round. Because I think the Heat could do that, but also the Heat have been so scrappy over the last few years in the playoffs. It's kind of hard to write them in that boat.
They're going to end up in the finals anyways. It's fine. It is what it is. They could be the 9 seed, 10 seed. They'll make it. They'll make it there.
The Cavs are. You know what? When we talk about when we do our NFL preview, a year too early, maybe a year too early on the Cavs. 1 year too early. I think that. They're going to be impressive. They're going to be a playoff team, but maybe a year too early on them. Another year under their belt. This very young team. And maybe that puts them in a better position in 2024, 2025. But as far as this year goes, probably going to win a ton of games, but the playoff push I don't see happening.
Yeah. Let's talk about Boston, Milwaukee then. So you had Milwaukee as the number 1 seed in the East, Boston at 3. I had Boston at the number 1 seed in the East and Milwaukee at 3. Give me the case for the Bucks as the favorite in the East, and then I'll do the same for the Celtics.
That's Dame. I mean, they were missing that one guy. I mean, it was Dame. And look, to be completely honest, I don't care if we flip it at 1 and 3. I don't care. Like that is totally plausible, and that could totally happen. And you know what? Both teams could win 50 plus games, be flipped, and they're still just as competitive if they were the 1 seed or the 3 seed. But I think that Dame is the difference maker in this lineup. He's the difference maker in that organization. And I think that this, I mean, I would pencil in the Bucks for 60 plus wins is what I would do.
Yeah. I do think, and listen, Milwaukee, obviously very talented. We talked about the Dame thing already. I do think Damian Lillard's never played anywhere in his NBA career other than Portland. Spent a long time in Portland, spent over a decade in Portland. And now he's coming over to a new organization, that has had a core essentially intact for the last 5 or 6 years. Giannis, Middleton, Bobby Portis, Brook Lopez, Pat Connaughton. It's like those kind of, they've been around. They've been in this for a number of years. They've established a culture and identity. And now you're bringing in Dame Dalla, Damian Lillard. Like he's kind of a big fucking deal, And how is that going to mesh together? How are they going to find ways to win together? I just think it might be something where the regular season isn't as successful as we think it should be on paper because of all the talent they have. But the second half of the season, they sort of gel. They figure some things out. They figure out how this marriage works between Dame and Giannis, who's taking over at the end of games, whose responsibility is this. And by postseason, by the playoffs, they're rolling, and they're going to be one of the toughest teams to get out. But I do think they might slip a bit in the regular season because of the new dynamics and what that might mean as far as winning games. Not that they're going to be bad, obviously, but maybe not quite to the 60, 58 plus win range like they have been.
So, okay. Perfect. Because I didn't know how to articulate this, and now I think I do. Here's my argument for Dame is why he's going to push that team and why the cohesiveness is not going to be an issue for this. The dude unselfishly stayed in Portland for a long time. He could have declared free agency. Yeah, he could have gone to free agency and gone somewhere else. There were plenty of other people. He stayed in Portland. He kept re-signing with Portland. He just in character, based off the decisions he's made as far as his career path goes, seems like an unselfish player in my mind.
Yeah.
So as far as him going to an already prolific offensive team, I don't think that transition will be as hard as, let's say James Harden goes to Milwaukee. Like, sure. I don't think that transition is going to be as difficult. And that's complete speculation and just what we've seen as outsiders looking in. But Dame seems like a pretty unselfish guy, a guy that's pretty easy to work with, and also a spectacular talent. So maybe that's where I kind of lean Milwaukee over Boston as far as getting to that 1 seed. Is maybe that transition won't be as tough with a guy like Dame coming into that team.
Sure, yeah. For the Boston side, Mitch, the reason why I had Boston at number 1. It's funny when Milwaukee made that move. They trade Drew Holiday to Portland. They give up some pieces, but generally speaking, I saw that move and it was like, all right, Milwaukee's the favorite in the East pretty clearly. They made a big move, and then like the next day, Boston ends up with Drew Holiday. They get him out of Portland, and they didn't really give much up for him. And all of a sudden, it was like, man, Boston really found a pretty good Dame stopper right there in Drew Holiday, huh? To add to what's already, one of the best teams in the East, 57-win team last year in the Boston Celtics. So I do feel like right now I would feel more confident in Boston as a full roster. Obviously, Giannis and Dame, there may not be a better duo in the NBA, period. But I think as a cohesive team unit right now, Boston may have the edge in that regard. And the addition of Drew Holiday, and especially when it comes to those matchups, okay, you got Cleveland. Well, you throw Drew Holiday on Donovan Mitchell. You got Milwaukee with you, Drew Holiday on Damian Lillard, right? No matter the team that they're going to face in the East, they have a defensive stopper at that guard position alongside great, defense in the key from Brook Lopez and perimeter defense from Giannis and all those other guys. Or sorry, that's the Bucks. I mean, I got lost in the sauce there.
Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and
Boston's a great defensive team.
Yeah.
We know what Boston can do. Adding Drew Holiday to that, I mean, it's just like, what are we talking about here? So I feel like for that reason, Boston should be the favorite going into this season. I think all these teams are very close, but that Drew Holiday move for me is what put Boston over the edge, if I'm being honest.
The defense should be impressive from Boston, absolutely. And I think that's kind of maybe where you're getting at. It's just like that team is just going to be a defensive stalwart. Just like it's going to be tough to score points on them. So I completely get that. But like I said, you could put the Bucks at 3 and the Celtics at 1, and I would feel the same. I would feel the same. It's great. It's great.
100%.
So, wide open in the East. Wide open.
Absolutely. What about the Western Conference, Mitch? Let's jump over to the Western Conference, and let's start as we did in the East at the bottom. Give me your bottom 4 seeds in the Western Conference in the 2023-2024 season.
I'm going to have to do it with the 8 seed, what I just did in the Eastern Conference, and pick between 4 teams. I'm going to go with the Thunder at 8.
Okay.
I'm going to go with the Lakers at 7.
Okay.
The Warriors are at 6.
Okay.
And the Suns at 5.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting. I have the Dallas Mavericks at the 8 seed. I have Los Angeles at the 7 seed.
Well, which Los Angeles?
Come on.
Clippers? The Clippers?
Yeah, the Clippers. I have the Clippers at the 7 seed. I have Oklahoma City at the 6 seed.
Okay.
And I have the Sacramento Kings at the 5 seed.
Okay, cool.
So the 3 other teams you mentioned outside of OKC, they're in my seeding. They're all in the playoffs for me.
Wow.
They're just all in the top 4 seeds, which I found very surprising. I'm curious, though, on the teams that I mentioned that you didn't, how many of those teams are still in this playoff, or did you not include some of those?
So wait, what were the other 3?
The only team we agreed on was Oklahoma City.
Right.
That was the only team we had the same.
So I do have the Kings. I have the Mavericks, and I have the Clippers. Oh, and I have the Clippers. Okay, so yeah.
Okay.
They're just all up there. So
what does that say about the Western Conference, right? The East was so clean. We had the same top 4. It was like, yeah, you have these and then you have these. The Western Conference.
I just mentioned the East is wide open. The West might even be more wide open, maybe.
It feels like there's a lot of really good teams. Whereas in the East, there's like 4 or 5 teams at the top that are really competitive, and then the rest is, okay. It feels like in the West, there might be 10 teams that could be top 4 seeds. And it's just kind of depend on how it shakes out.
Yeah, no, I mean, like teams that I left out that I kind of wanted to put in there, and I think they'll be in the play-in tournament were like the Pelicans,
Yeah.
the Spurs, the T-Wolves, like teams that could play their way in, but like
The Grizzlies.
The Grizzlies.
I mean, I know they're missing Ja Morant, but still a really good team. It feels weird. It's like what to do with them right now.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, it just seems so wide open. Like I think, yeah, I feel like you just have to stake your claim on a team in the West, and like, it's a confusing time, man. It's just so wide open. It's so wide open.
Yeah, very wide open. I love that we both are excited about the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yes.
They were a play-in tournament team last year, but didn't get into the actual playoffs. I do feel like this is a team that's ready to make that leap. I mean, so much talent. SGA is a star. They had no Chet Holmgren last year, so he's essentially a rookie this year. And you're adding that to what's already a talented roster. Josh Giddey has seemingly made a leap. I mean, I'm not going to lie, Mitch. I'm not going to lie. My first iteration of this, I had OKC as a 4 seed. And I backed off of that because I just felt like maybe I'm going too hard on this, but
that's spicy.
It's just an extremely talented roster. And yeah, there's a lot of quote unquote super teams and all these pair ups across the rest of the conference, but they're all older. I'm just saying they're all veterans. They're guys in or past their prime. And here's the young team that has all the juice and all the energy coming out of nowhere. I'm just saying maybe they're bringing something that, some of these other teams aren't, in a way that like Sacramento did last year. So I don't know. Could they be the Kings of this year? Could they end up as a top 3 seed like the Kings did last year? I would be shocked. That's all I'm saying. I'm very high on the Thunder this year.
Yeah, I like it. I like being high on the Thunder. I think that they are going to be the Sacramento Kings of this year, though. They're just like they're super talented. They don't have that experience when it comes to playoff time, and they're going to need to have their butts kicked maybe once or twice in the playoffs before they actually make that leap. So, I'm all in on the Thunder making the playoffs. I'm all in on that, but it's a year too early. Too early once again on the Thunder.
Okay. I love this. We have like all the same teams, just incredibly different orders. So let's get to the top 4 and let's hear how this shakes out for you. So give me your top 4 seeds in the West.
So at the 4 seed, I got the Clippers.
Okay.
At the 3 seed, I got the Kings.
All right.
At the 2 seed, I got the Mavericks.
Wow.
And at the 1 seed, I got the Nuggets.
Okay, yeah. And then my 4, so at the 4 seed, I have the Phoenix Suns, the 3 seed, the Los Angeles Lakers, the 2 seed, the Golden State Warriors, and the 1 seed, the Denver Nuggets.
Okay.
We are in consensus on the Nuggets. They should be the favorite. They're the defending NBA champs for a reason, and they didn't get any worse this offseason. Nuggets are legit. As far as some of these other teams go, tell me about the Dallas Mavericks, because, we both had them in the playoffs, but I had them at the 8 seed and you had them at the 2 seed. So talk me into the hype on the Mavericks.
I have talked about the Mavericks the last couple of years of like, I'm in on the Mavericks and then they disappoint. Then I'm in on the Mavericks and they get into the playoffs and they fall short. I'm still in on the Mavericks. Does Kyrie play an entire year? Is Luka going to be? No, I get it. No, he doesn't. Is Luka? We already know the talent and the superstar that he is, but is he physically going to prepare himself for the duration of an 82-game season? Because we talked about it, like his physicality. He seems to run out of gas sometimes. I think that there's so many good pieces around this team too. It's just, I'm tired of being wrong about the Mavericks year in and year out, and I just want to be right. So I put them at the 2 seed. And that's not even the team I'm really staking my flag on. That's not even the team I'm really staking my flag on. The team I'm really staking my flag on is the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah.
I am staking my flag. I'm saying, look, this might be a team that we see in the Western Conference Finals.
Wow.
Is the Sacramento Kings. I mean, I think that experience of losing in the playoffs last year was exactly what the doctor ordered for them. And especially in a tight series, like make it devastating for them that they're that much hungrier to come back. And I think that was great fuel for the Sacramento Kings, especially this very young team that has so many great, talented young pieces around it. This is continuing to build a true powerhouse in the West. And I think the Kings, putting them at the 3 seed, honestly, I wanted to put them at the 2. But this is me staking my flag down for the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, I like that. And listen, they were the 3 seed last year, 48 wins for Sacramento. And listen, I had them at the 5. I think, they'll have a similar record to last year. I just think the West might perform a little better in the regular season than what we saw last year. But they are certainly in that mix. And that's what I think the Western Conference is so fun, is it's like so many teams are going to be in that 46 to 52 win range in this conference, and it's going to be anybody's chance come playoffs. And a lot of it will depend on health. A lot of it's going to depend on matchups, but it's just going to be get in the dance, give yourself a shot, and we'll see what happens. So let's give our picks, Mitch. Let's give me your pick out of the Western Conference, and then we'll give our picks out of the Eastern Conference, and we'll talk about this NBA Finals and our predictions there. But as we put an end to this season preview, who's your favorite? Who's going to represent the Western Conference in the NBA Finals?
I mean, it's kind of hard to pick against them because they were so good last year. They're the defending champions. They, like you said, they did not get any worse. It's hard to pick against the Denver Nuggets to be the representative out of the West. I mean, look for Jokic to be another MVP favorite this year. I mean, this team is just incredible. I like the Nuggets out of the West, though.
Yeah, Nuggets should be the favorite out of the West to start this year, again, as the defending Western Conference champs and defending NBA champions. But Mitch, call me a homer.
I don't care. Don't do that. Don't do that.
I don't care.
Don't do that. Care.
The Lakers put the best roster that they have had in years around LeBron James and Anthony Davis this year. If there is a final chance, and I will say this, Mitch, if there is a final opportunity for LeBron James to win an NBA title in his NBA career, it is this season. I think this is it. This is the best chance he's ever going to have to win an NBA title. And it's not because of him, and it's not because of his health or his level of play, the circumstances around him, the inevitable decline that is going to come at some point physically, and we don't know when that's going to happen. He's going to be a motivated man to win the title. I think the Lakers will get to the finals. I didn't say I pick them to win it, but I think they'll represent the West.
Look, you're picking them to win it. I know you are. Hey, it's okay to be a homer. I'm a homer week in and week out with the Chicago Bears. So
yeah, you are.
It's okay to have your homer moment, but I'll pray for you.
Name a better big three than LeBron, Anthony Davis, and AR-15. I'm just saying, name a better big three than Austin Reeves, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis. I'm just saying. All right.
Giannis.
Obviously, I'm joking.
Giannis, Dame, and Middleton. There you go, Giannis, right there.
Giannis, Dame, and insert whatever third player you want. Mitch, let's go to speaking of Giannis and Dame, the Eastern Conference. Is Milwaukee? They were your number 1 seed. Are they the favorite? Are they your pick out of the Eastern Conference?
Yeah, I'm picking Milwaukee.
Okay.
I think this is good. I think that'd be a fantastic finals matchup. And it's not a cop out to do the 2 number 1 seeds to get into the finals. I think that they just will be the 2 best teams at the end of the year, and I think they'll get into it. Now, Dallen, for the listener's sake, I really hope you pick the Celtics here, because I would love to see a Lakers Celtics finals.
Well, I'm not one to disappoint people, so
let's go.
Good news for you and good news for me. I did pick the Celtics. They are my number 1 seed.
Let's go.
And I do think that in a Milwaukee-Boston Eastern Conference Finals, a 7-game absolute slugfest, Boston will get by, and we'll get a classic rematch. And was this my finals pick last year in the Western when both those teams were in the conference finals? Yes. Is that a little bit of a cop-out? Whatever. It's a great matchup. We all want to see it.
It's great. It's great.
LeBron wins his final title in his career as a Laker over the Celtics. I mean, just
storybook.
Just write it down. Write it down. Make the movie. I'm just saying. So yeah, I have Boston and LA. I'm not picking. Or do we have to pick who wins? We have to pick who wins, right?
I did.
Okay. Go ahead. Yeah. Tell us who wins.
Well, I picked Milwaukee. To win this one, and it's probably the favorite of anyone, but I do think Milwaukee is probably going to be the best team, and they should get this one done in at least 7. But I think that Nuggets Bucks should be a 7-game series. That'd be a tough one.
Okay, Mitch has Milwaukee over Denver in the NBA Finals, and listen, if I'm putting the Lakers and the Celtics in the finals, I mean, what am I, fucking stupid?
Oh my God.
I'm not picking the Celtics. So yeah, I will pick LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers to win the NBA title this year over this Boston Celtics. And listen, I will be totally fine with being wrong come April when the Lakers are like the 7 seed and get bounced in the first round. I will be, it'll be fine. But I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, Mitch. I'm slurping that shit up.
Drink that lemon lime Kool-Aid, yellow Kool-Aid.
That Sprite, want a cranberry? Loved it.
Oh shit, he was a Sprite guy, wasn't he?
He was
the Sprite guy.
You remember those commercials?
Oh yeah.
Want a Sprite? That's what he said. Want a Sprite cranberry?
Sprite cranberry, by the way, very underrated drink. It was fantastic. It was fantastic.
Fun stuff. I mean, NBA season just a couple weeks underway last week. I went to a Jazz game on Friday night. It's just so fun to be there. Fun to have basketball back, and exciting that in a couple weeks we'll have the in-season tournament to be excited about in this while it overlaps with the football season. Because obviously once football's over, we get to dive right into NBA. But it feels like we'll have more incentive to care, through the end of the football season. So I'm excited for that.
I'm excited to just cover more basketball. We'll get into some more basketball as the season goes on, and of course, as this in-season tournament happens, we're going to be talking a lot about that. So stay tuned. If you're an NBA fan, stay tuned for more of that. That'll be a ton of fun. But Dallen, let's wrap up the show the way we always do every single week with our quick picks. Dallen, you gapped me again last week. 2 more games. I was 10-6. You were 12-4. Dallen, that puts you at 77-45. I am at 72-50. Look, a lot of ball left, but it doesn't feel good being down by 5 games. I need a big swing here. I need a couple weeks where I just chip away by a game or 2 games, every week. You've been pretty solid the last few weeks, actually. 12-4, and I think 9-4 the week before.
Yeah, I'm on a bit of a run, and that's how this goes. You hit a streak, you get some wins together, you can create a gap, you can close a gap. So, the door's open for you, buddy. We still got a lot of time left in this NFL season.
Absolutely. Teams on bye this week: Denver, Detroit, Jacksonville, and San Francisco. So no games for those guys. But let's kick this week's quick picks off on Thursday night. The Tennessee Titans. They're headed over to Steel City to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Right now, Pittsburgh favored at -2.5 at home. Give me the man that puts mayonnaise in his coffee. Give me Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans to get it done on the road. I like the Titans in this one. Right, the hot hand. Pittsburgh's going to have Mitch Trubisky probably under center. So this is not a good scenario for Pittsburgh. I like Tennessee to get this one done. Give me the Titans.
Yeah, I will take the Titans as well in this one. Kenny Pickett says he's going to play. Even if he does, he's hobbled. If not, as you said, it's Mitchell Trubisky. Doesn't make you feel confident either way. And yes, the Steelers are at home, but this Tennessee Titans team seems to be riding momentum with Will Levis. Give me the Titans on the road. Put something else in your coffee, goddammit. But you know what? It's fine. Will Levis gets the win on Thursday night, Mitch. And then we head across the Atlantic. We're not going to London for the first time in NFL history, a regular season game in Germany, Frankfurt. And it's a hell of a matchup with the Miami Dolphins and the Kansas City Chiefs, 2 of the best teams in the AFC, facing off. An early kickoff. Make your coffee in the morning. Don't put mayo in it, and enjoy some football on Sunday, bright and early. Kansas City favored -1 in the game, but I am taking Miami. Kansas City looked suspect last week. I think they'll put up a much better performance, but this Dolphins team is a high-powered offense that is tough to stop. It'll be a big challenge for Kansas City. Miami wins in a shootout.
I love that. By the way, raw goat milk in your coffee or mayonnaise?
Can I just put like half and half? Do I have?
No, you said put something else in your coffee, so I'm trying to figure it out. Is it raw goat milk or mayonnaise?
I'd probably
Would you rather?
Raw goat milk.
Okay,
probably.
okay. All right, fair enough. Down, look, this game needs to be put in the pit of misery. Dilly,
Wow.
welcome to the pit of misery. Why are we putting what could possibly be game of the week in Germany starting at 6:30 a.m. on the West Coast? What are we doing, NFL? This should be a primetime game. I don't understand. I get it. Grow the game. We want to put a good game over there in Europe so they get excited about the season. They get excited about the league. I get it, but damn it. This is matchup of the week, possibly.
Yeah.
And we're putting it in Germany. So, Dilly, welcome to the NFL schedulers, to the pit of misery. I don't know how long we'll be there. I'm going to take Miami in this one as well, though, Dallin. I think Miami gets a good win over Kansas City. Kansas City looking for a rebound. I don't know if they're really built for that right now. Doesn't seem like a team that's on a very solid run right now. So I'm going to take Miami in this one. Following that game, Minnesota. The Vikings, they're headed over to Hotlanta to take on the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons right now favored -4.5 at home. Give me the Falcons. I like the Falcons in this one at home over the Vikings.
Yeah, a couple new starters for both of these teams. Taylor Heineke took over midway through the game last week for Desmond Ridder for the Falcons, and Heineke will start this week against Minnesota. And on the Vikings side, it's 5th-round draft pick, the BYU product, Jaren Hall. I spent every Monday during the 2021 season in his apartment. I know this kid pretty well. I like this kid a lot. And you know what? I'm giving him his first NFL win this week. Give me Minnesota on the road to maybe shock most of the NFL and get the win in Atlanta. Get to 5-4. And you know what? Maybe Jaren, maybe he gives you a question about whether you should start Josh Dobbs for the rest of the season or give the 5th-round rookie a shot. So give me Minnesota to rally around the Kirk Cousins injury and get a win.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Following that game. Oh, go ahead. You got something?
I have a pause. Hit pause, Dallin. We have a World Series winner, by the way.
Okay.
The Texas Rangers get it done in 5. Texas Rangers 5-0 over the Arizona Cardinals, the Arizona Diamondbacks. So congratulations to the Texas Rangers. Did just want to throw that in there really quick. But good solid win. Good solid win for the Rangers.
Congrats to the Rangers.
Well done. Back to football. Back to football.
Seattle Seahawks traveling to Baltimore. A really good matchup in this one. Two really competitive teams, top of their conferences. Baltimore favored by -6, and both these teams playing well, but I will roll with the Ravens and Lamar Jackson in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Ravens in this one as well. Lamar Jackson could be a serious MVP candidate by the end of the year. I mean, this guy's been putting together fantastic numbers. Loving what he's doing over there in Baltimore right now. I like Baltimore at home as well. Following that game, the Arizona Cardinals, they are leaving the desert and headed over to the best city in Ohio, Dallin, Cleveland. Cleveland to take on the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland right now favored -8. Give me the Brownies in this one. Tons of question marks still in Arizona. Cleveland has that stout defense. I like Cleveland in this one over the Cardinals.
Yeah, Arizona tanking clearly for the season. They've traded Josh Dobbs. They're starting Clayton Tune in this game. All but giving up. Sad to see it if you're a Cardinals fan, but Cleveland should get it done. Don't fall for the trap game. Take care of business at home. I'll take the Browns. Following that, Mitch, Los Angeles Rams 3-5 on the season. They're headed to Lambeau to take on the 2-5 Packers. Packers have been slipping of late. Need to right the ship up there in Green Bay. They're favored in this game by 3. But I'm going to take the Rams in this one, who are a very competitive team. Really tough loss to the Cowboys last week, but they bounce back, get a big win over the Packers. Give me the Rams.
I'm going to take the Rams as well, because there's no way in hell I'm taking the Green Bay Packers in this game. Give me the Rams on the road to get it done over Green Bay. And you like Green Bay struggling. Jordan Love is struggling. This is just a really bad offense. I like the Rams in this one on the road. Following that, Tampa Bay, they're leaving the state of Florida to head over to the Lone Star State to take on the Houston Texans. Houston right now favored -3. Give me the Texans. This one actually was one of the tougher games that I had to pick because I think that Tampa Bay is hanging tough with what they got, but Houston plays really well and teams that they have a possibility of beating, and I think that Houston could definitely beat Tampa Bay, so I'm going to take Houston to cover here.
Yeah, battle of the Gulf here between Houston and Tampa Bay, and both teams been pretty competitive this year. I saw Tampa Bay as one of the worst teams coming into the season. I thought they would bottom out. I know a lot of people thought Houston would be really bad, but I think both are proven to be more competitive than that. This should be a good contest, but I will take Houston at home to get it done, get to 500, 4-4 record. That'd be incredible for the rookie CJ Stroud, first-year head coach DeMeco Ryans. I mean, what a great start that would be for Houston. So we'll take the Texans as well in this one. Washington, the Commanders, Mitch, headed up to Foxborough. The reeling Patriots on deck for Sam Howell and the Commanders. New England 2-6, out of answers seemingly this season. It's just not been going right. Can you fully count them out with Bill Belichick? We'll see. New England favored -3.5 in this one, but I will take Washington, who, even though they've lost 5 games, they've been very competitive. They can put up numbers on offense. Sam Howell can sling it around, and they can stay in some games. I think they'll get this one done.
See, on the contrary, I am going with offensive struggles for Washington this week. I think Belichick puts together a good defensive plan against Washington, and offensive coordinator Eric Sleeping with Bieniemy has a tough time getting it done against the New England Patriots. Give me the Pats at home to win this one. Following that game, we have my Chicago Bears. They're leaving the Windy City to head over to Nolans, the Big Easy, to take on the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans right now favored -8.5. Tyson Bagent has to get one more win, I think, as a starter. He has to. So you got to be crazy if you think I'm not taking my Chicago Bears. Bear down. Give me the Bears on the road against the Saints.
Yeah, no surprise here that you took Chicago, and that's fair. It's what you do. I commend you for it. I will take the Saints in this one. I did think this is a close game. -8.5, that line is really surprising. I know Chicago hasn't been great this year. They have 2 wins, but I don't know. I wouldn't like that line at all if I was a Saints fan. That scares me there. That just screams trap game for me. But I will say the Saints survive a test and get it done by a field goal. But they get the win in the Big Easy. Give me the Saints. Following that, Mitch, the afternoon slate and my Carolina Panthers, fresh off of win number 1 on the season. And it's another rookie quarterback in this matchup, except for he's not playing. What a disappointment. We could have had back-to-back weeks of Bryce Young versus CJ Stroud and then Bryce Young versus Anthony Richardson, but we don't get that. We get Gardner Minshew, and I love Gardner. That's great. I'm excited for that too. We're just missing out a little bit on what could have been a really fun duel here yet again. But Carolina, Indianapolis favored -2.5 in this game. Keep pounding. I'm not satisfied with win number 2. I want win number 1. I want win number 2. Give me the Panthers.
Dallin, I got 2 words for you. Keep pounding. Give me the Carolina Panthers at home over the Indianapolis Colts.
Let's go.
Get this one done. Get win number 2. I like the Panthers. Dallin, following that, we have the New York Giants. They are leaving the Big Apple and headed over to Sin City to take on the Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders right now favored -2. Garbage game of the week?
Yeah, garbage game of the week.
Straight hot garbage. You're a garbage person.
Yeah, this is straight hot garbage, my friend. This is a matchup of... Yeah, give it to him twice. That's how garbage this is. We give it to you twice. No, a hot garbage matchup between the Giants and the Raiders, and I've got a hot garbage matchup of quarterbacks. We have Tommy DeVito, right? That's the guy's name?
Yeah.
Tommy DeVito against Aiden O'Connell, who will be under center for the Las Vegas Raiders. Just a god-awful quarterback matchup. This should be, if you're betting the under on the total points scored in this game, hammer it, but I am going to take the Raiders at home.
Yeah, I didn't want to pick a winner on this one. I feel like that's dumb.
No one wins in this game.
It's all losers. but somebody has to walk away victorious. I guess it could be a tie. We could have predicted a tie if we really wanted, but I will take the Raiders, I guess, at home in this one. They rally some way, somehow around all the chaos this week, and they get a win. So we'll go Vegas on this one.
What if we both predicted a tie, and if it's not a tie, we both take the loss?
I mean, I guess if you want to, we could pick a tie any week, and I guess if you don't get it, it's an L. But if you get it, it's a win. What? How do you?
Yeah,
it's a tie? I don't know. That's weird.
Fuck it. Yeah, no, we're not gonna do
Don't
that, yeah.
watch this game. That's all.
That's
all I know. Do something else on your Sunday afternoon. After that, though, during this time, great matchup. Watch this game: Dallas Cowboys, Philadelphia Eagles, NFC East, two of the best teams in the NFC conference. Philly favored by -3 at home. This is a toss-up matchup, essentially. And I can't wait to watch it. I'm taking Philly, though. Philly at home gets it done over Dallas. Dallas shows up, though. They don't fold over like they did against the Niners. They show out. They compete in this one, but they fall in a close one to the Eagles.
Tight game, 34-32, something like that. I mean, tight, high-scoring game. I like Philly in this one, though, as well. Philly's going to get this one done over the Cowboys. Sunday Night Football down the Buffalo Bills. They were leaving upstate New York to head over to Ohio to take on the Cincinnati Bengals. The red-hot Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals been playing well as of late. Right now, Cincinnati favored at -2. Give me Buffalo, though. Buffalo needs to get back on track, and I think this is a good game for them to get it done on the road in Cincinnati. It'd be an uphill climb, but I think they get it done. I like the Bills.
Yeah, this was a tough one to pick, especially with how these teams have started off this season. Yeah, Cincinnati is really rolling of late, but 4-3, Buffalo 5-3 and behind in the AFC East. Neither of these teams are leading their division. They cannot afford another loss. They cannot afford a fourth loss this early in the season. So, I mean, I don't want to call it a must-win per se, but certainly a very important game for the AFC picture. And both these teams highly motivated to get it done. I expect this to be a really good game, but I'm taking Cincinnati. Give me Joe Burrow, the Tiger King, at home to get it done, get to 5-3, and best Josh Allen in what should be an incredible matchup. And following that, Mitch, the final game of the week, Monday Night Football, the Los Angeles Chargers headed to the Meadowlands to take on the New York Jets. 3-4 Chargers, 4-3 Jets. Chargers favored -3.5 on the road. But don't count out those Jets, Jets. As it's ugly as it's been, as bad as they looked at times, Zach Wilson has led them to 3 game-winning drives. They seem to get wins even when they shouldn't. And I love the fight and the heart in this Jets team this year. They may not make the playoffs. They may not be that competitive, but they're sure as hell going to be a hard out week in and week out, and they're going to challenge you. Jets get it done on Monday night in another ugly affair, but give me the New York Jets to get the win over the Chargers.
I am done putting my faith in the Los Angeles Chargers. I made that very clear at the beginning of the year. I love how scrappy this Jets team is, though. And I'm going with the Jets, Jets to get it done on Monday Night Football over the Los Angeles Chargers.
Love it. There you go. That's it for the quick picks. Week 9 of the NFL season coming up. We will be halfway through the NFL season come next week. And so on next week's podcast, you can expect a little mid-season look at the NFL. We aren't quite sure maybe exactly how we'll do that, but we'll give you a little mid-season look. If you have any ideas, what you want to hear us talk about, what you want us to react to or look back on from the first half of the season, or how we should look ahead to the second half of the NFL season, let us know. Leave us a comment here on the live stream if you're watching on YouTube or Twitter, or any of our socials. Drop us a DM, send us a message. Let us know what you'd like to hear us talk about. But for this podcast, Mitch, that's going to do it. And if you don't already, follow us on all those socials. Join the YouTube every week as we go live at youtube.com/the Sports Hour Guys. You can also follow us on X, formerly Twitter, at Sports Hour Guys. The Instagram, the TikTok, they're at the Sports Hour Guys. Get at us on there. and let your opinion be heard, because we want to hear from the folks.
Yes, we would love to hear from you guys. And, any time that we can hear from you guys is a very, very awesome time for me and Dallen. And if you want to listen to this show in podcast form, you can get on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. Look up the Sports Hour Guys. You will find us there. Get on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a rating review. Tell us that we suck, because Dallen, that is the only way we can get better.
Yes, it's the only way that we could get better. Definitely want to do that. Month of November coming up. Lots of exciting things. The conclusion of the college football season will be here at the end of the month. Obviously, the MLB, as we talked about with the World Series, getting wrapped up with the Rangers taking home the World Series trophy this year. So MLB is officially done with. NBA is just getting started, though. College basketball to shortly follow. I mean, it's just it's exciting times. Looking forward to this month and what it has in store for us here on the podcast.
It never ends, my friend. It never ends.
Turn
it over and start another season. Let's go.
That's how it goes, and that's what we're here to do. So until next time, we love you. We appreciate you. And we will catch you next week.
So long, everyone, and a very pleasant good evening to you, wherever you may be. See ya!